an ambassador to England, a friend. You might like to gamble, you might like to dance. You may be the heavyweight champion of the world. You may be a socialite with a long string of pearls, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. Yes, indeed, you're gonna have to serve somebody. And maybe the devil and it may be the Lord, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. You might be a rock and roll addict dancing on the stage. You might have drugs at your command, women in a cage. You may be a businessman or some high-degree thief. You may call me doctor, you may call you thief, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. Yes, you are. You're gonna have to serve somebody. And maybe the devil and it may be the Lord, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. Maybe a state trooper, you might be a young Turk, you might be the head of some big TV network. You may be rich or poor, you may be blind or lame, you may be living in another country under another name, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. Yes, you are. You're gonna have to serve somebody. And maybe the devil and it may be the Lord, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. You may be a construction worker working out of home. You may be living in a mansion, you might live in a dome. You might own guns, you might even own tanks. You might be somebody's landlord, you might even own banks, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. Yes, you are, you're gonna have to serve somebody. And maybe the devil and it may Lord, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. You may be a preacher with your spiritual pride. You may be a councilman taking bribes on the side. You may be working in a barber shop. You may know how to cut hair. You may be somebody's mistress, you may be somebody's heir, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. Yes, you are. You're gonna have to serve somebody. And maybe the devil and it may be the Lord, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. I like to wear cotton, I like to wear silk, I like to drink whiskey, I like to drink milk. You may like eating caviar, you may like eating bread, maybe sleeping on the floor, sleeping in a king-size bed, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. Yes, indeed, you're gonna have to serve somebody. Maybe the devil and it may be the Lord, but you're gonna have to serve You may call me Terry, you may call me Tim, you may call me Bobby, you may call me Sonny, you may call me Archie, you may call me Ray, you may call me anything. No matter what you say, you're still going to serve somebody. Well, I don't drink as much as I used to, 'cause lately just ain't my style. And the hard times, they don't hurt like they ought to. They pass quickly like when I was a child. Somehow I learned how to listen to a sound like the sun going down. The magic of the morning is pregnant. There's a song for the life I have found. It keeps my feet on the ground. When the midsummer days are real heady, they just blow like a breeze through my mind, and nothing appears in a hurry as it makes up for some old lost time. Somehow I've learned how to listen to a sound like the sun going down. The magic of the morning is pregnant. There's a song for the love I have found. It keeps my feet on the ground. Well, I don't drink as much as I used to, because lately it just ain't my style. And the hard times, they don't hurt like they ought to. They pass quickly like when I was a child. Somehow I've learned how to listen to a sound like the sun going down. The magic of the morning is pregnant. There's a song for the life I have found. It keeps my feet on the ground. Somehow I've learned how to listen to a sound like the sun going down. And the magic of the morning is pregnant. There's a song for the love I found. It keeps my feet on the ground. 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 do all I can, no more, though worthy offering me. My heart and lute are all the story that I can give today. A lute whose gentle song reveals the soul of our full world. And better for a heart that feels much more than lute can tell. Though love and song may fail, alas, to keep life's clouds away, at least 'twill make them lighter pass, or fill them if they stay. And even if care and romance flings a discord o'er life's happy strain, all love but gently touch the strings, 'twill all be sweet again. All their love but gently touch the strings, 'twill all be sweet again. Greetings, friends. How you doing? How you doing? Let me catch my breath. Good to see you here. I said I'd start up a hangout. So as usual, I opened with 3 songs, and I sort of enjoyed them really well. First one, I hadn't really sang start to finish before ever, actually, but I kind of knew it well enough. It was pretty simple as well, but it was a bit taxing, especially when it came to the word devil. And I was only thinking about the devil today, actually. It's probably a story I might tell a little bit later on. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, the second 2 songs I wrote this after, so that was a bit easier on the voice. Voice a bit hoarse at the minute. I was thinking, that's just from straining to too much singing. I was thinking earlier on, or just half an hour ago, I should maybe do a bit of hot water with some salt in it to ease it down. And I said, hang on, you drink urine. So I gargled some urine, and I should be all right. Just when you don't, like any sort of exercise, when you don't warm up beforehand, your throat pays the price. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed some of those offerings there. Bob Dylan was the opening song. You got to serve somebody. Some very interesting lyrics as usual. But lo and behold, what's mentioned in maybe verse 3 or 4, you probably caught it if you were listening. Let me just go over it. Well, let me go over the whole thing, actually. So yeah, nothing particular tonight. I'm going to read something, and I'm just going to talk about a few basic things. But yeah, welcome everyone. So just nice and easy, relaxed, off the cuff sort of hangout. So no pressure in any front whatsoever. So that will be reflected in the chat. One thing I'm afraid I'm going to have to do is get rid of all the wrenches, because it seems that lots of comments aren't showing up, which is okay by me in one sense, but in another sense it's not. And it seems that people with wrenches can interfere with messages of that kind. So that's not on, obviously. We don't know anyone to any degree here. I certainly don't. I've met 2 people I know, and outside of that, though, I met 2 people I know, 2 people who I have had interactions with online as well. And outside of that, though, we don't know anybody, so it won't be any reflection on the individual. I don't like wrenches in the first place, so I think I'm going to have to remove them anyway, just as a safekeeping mark, and it'll bring its own trouble, but we'll deal with that when it comes to it. Anyway, yeah, let me, as I usually do, go through the songs, and yeah, if you paid attention, you should have heard this. And let me just go through the lyrics. You may be an ambassador. God serve somebody by Bob Dylan, first of all. You may be an ambassador to England or France. You might like to gamble, you might like to dance. There's a significance in the word dance as well. Are we human or are we dancers by the killers? So we want to see what the word means when you break it up. That's pretty much a language it's the letters that it's composed of. So if you can nail down what a letter in a particular context may mean, then of course you have a better understanding of this reoccurring theme, if you will. The dancer, who is the dance? What is the dance? Who is the dancer? It's the same with this Rain Man character. Who or what is the Rain Man? Under my umbrella. What does it all mean? Well, it all is a connection to you and your story. This is what my take on all of this. Everything is about you, first of all, your home. So imagine you move into a new home, you want to know something about it. This is a story that's been told about you. And then secondary and primarily, actually, is a story about you yourself. Then that's the only two stories there are, as far as I'm concerned. And when I start reading what I'm going to read later on, I'll tell you exactly where I'm coming from before I enter into reading it, which I know reading aloud will definitely, and it's not too long as well, but I think should be pretty enjoyable as well, for myself especially. But I'll get into that in a bit. Let me just go through this, and I find it very interesting in a few different places. But yeah, pay attention if you're so inclined. You may be the heavyweight champion of the world. You may be a socialite with a long string of pearls, right? So, but you're going to have to serve somebody. Yes, indeed, you're going to have to serve somebody. Well, maybe the devil or maybe the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. So what do you think about that? First of all, some very deep thoughts or considerations in lots of Bob Dylan songs, you know, while he's sort of very, very elusive character, and his lyrics are open to interpretation as well, you know. So I think now I've got a grasp on the context, and everything is about context. So when I see words like string of pearls there, or champion of the world, or heavyweight, these are all associated with our story, the external story. For instance, what is the world? What is weight? You know, these all tie into gravity. Just the greater story. There is a sort of solid tangibility and connectivity to us and our existence. It's not some airy-fairy, far-off puzzle, in other words, that you could try. You understand, you could try your life trying to decode. You still mightn't get any nearer to it. That defeats the purpose altogether. It's the complete opposite. It's a very up-close and personal story that we can all relate to, i.e. that's the story of me or us or you. And it's also the external story of our home, or the confines or the surrounds where we find ourselves. So that's what I'm thinking of. And especially when you open up the line to England or France, I could talk for ages. Did you know that on the crest of England, we have the lion and the unicorn? The unicorn is chained. Well, the lion we know is the emblem of England. Anyone have a guess what country the unicorn is the emblem of? I'll let you look that up yourself. These things are very significant in itself. So we can take the words as they hit us, England, for instance, or France, and that'll conjure up a picture associated with your path, you know, and your own narrative in life. You might not come across anything French. I remember after 9/11 that they were so pissed off at the French because they didn't support. Another clue for us, actually, remember the French were like the Irish of 60s London, you know. They used to have signs apparently, no blacks, no dogs, no dogs, no blacks, and certainly no Irish at the end, you know. But yeah, the French began that. They even went as far as to change the name of French fries to Freedom Fries. That's why I had not the nickname, just the sort of the sentence is "je suis dodo" after every. I don't mind admitting I'm a dodo because I know fuck all, but I know when my chain has been yanked. So, you know, when you realize that 9/11 was another hoax, and you were always meant to realize that, then you can look back and see, well, to what degree did you believe something and act it out? What was it based on, you know, and who was at fault here? Ultimately, I think these are the questions that we will come to ask. Who was at fault here? And it was our gullible fault. We had a gullible understanding of the world, the nature of everything. And it's by, I guess, adapting our understanding as to, which is another difficult thing, right? As to the nature of everything, we can look back on pretty much all information presented to us from official sources and beyond. There's always a conspiracy layer presented as being part of the grander theater, maybe the grander construct. So it depends on where you come down in terms of how you define the construct. People like Bob Dylan here, talked about that before. He's not one man. There's been about 4 or 5 different Bob Dylans throughout the 50, 60 years, you know, and all the clues are there for us as well. Every one of his albums feature almost a portrait of himself or a photograph showing himself. So if you put them together like one of those cartoon books, you will see a different man been projected. I think this is the idea. We were always meant to get these clues. I said it again and again about Barack Obama and Will Smith. If you were into that conspiracy, right, or you were into conspiracy-minded or curious-minded, you know, you would have been led down the pathway that Barack Obama was Osama bin Laden. So that, to all intents and purposes, was handed to us on a plate. So remember, we're the one player. Someone else has written the game. So that was handed to us on a plate. So what else are they withholding? Remember, we had the whole Obama birth certificate, man shell, Obama, all of this stuff thrown at you, you know. And if you're going to say as an individual, I don't care about that. That's nonsense, man. That's nonsense. That shakes the very foundations of your thinking loose. Because if everything to this level is all nonsense, circus, fucking freak show, theater, well, you know, who the fuck am I? What is the greater story here? So by just writing these things off as stuff you have no interest in and saying that I'm just stuck to these a few areas, and I'm not thinking of anyone in particular. What I actually going to say in my brain was Dell from Scotland, and as I said, I know that he's playing a part, so he's not representing where he's truly at and things, and that's fair enough as well. All of these people who are playing their part, I can look at in a positive way. These are clue givers. They're gatekeepers, but they're clue givers, right? The onus is always on you, the individual, to wake up to this game or to wake up to your part to play in all of this, you know, and that's the way I see it. So when I look at Bob Dylan songs like this, not that I look too deeply as well, I see these things, the choice of words, as I say, world, you'll get a better idea later on. That's not what I was asking you to look out for. Heavyweight, all of these things, it's all associated with the external story. Yeah. So yeah, it may be the devil. Devil is lived backwards. What's in a name? Well, Elvis is lives backward. So you want to decide what the devil is. A picture has been painted for you regarding what the devil is, when all it is really is, well, for me, I mean, but I think it makes absolute sense as well. First of all, we have to recognize, well, ask the question, the basic question, who are we? This will come into greater significance with what I'm going to read later on. And what I'm going to read, I heard on some conspiracy forum, Godlike Productions or something, general chat going, and, you know, you read the contributions, but I heard that the story itself is very significant to groups like the Masons, etc., you know. And if we learn anything from Alice in Wonderland, that means that the story itself is from the same hand that has produced pretty much everything else at the top levels. There's some overall hand controlling everything here, you know, and that's why I say that there's a puzzle in place. You might say it's a futile exercise following any of these clues. I say no, it's the complete opposite. It's the ultimate sort of endeavor, because having decided that this is not me, I'm not the body, right? So, but I have entered this either by force. I've been forced into it. So there's some powerful shit going on that I can't do anything about it. I've been forced into it. I've done something. But I have consented to come into this as a punishment or something like that, but I don't think so. Or, you know, yeah, this is sort of like a game. This is an adventure, temporary as it is in the overall scheme of things. Because remember, when you do away with the Big Bang and the infinite universe and everything else associated with scientific truth, that leaves a big gaping hole. And that doesn't lead, because you know something is not something, that doesn't get you any closer to understanding what it might be. So even if you don't cast your thoughts that way, that doesn't mean there isn't a real reality, in the best terms we can use it, in place, right? And I use that in the terms that this is reality in brackets, whereas the real reality incorporates me and my greater essence and all of us and all of our greater essences. So this is always where I'm coming from, and I'm going to be coming from this point of view more stringently not more stringently. That's just where I'm at now. So everything will be focused around that. I've done all the other arguments regarding the earth. I've done them all. I mean, and you know, I talked about the mirrored water layer 2 years ago, for instance. That changes everything. And you understand that that's what the sun, when you're looking out over water, rises from beyond and disappears behind, according to your perspective, the eyes of the beholder. Well, then you can understand what's going on. You have a literal mirrored water layer, right? Because you're dealing with very acuteness of angle, much compression. Imagine lining up 100 trees, sort of off step, each one a few feet away from the next. As you're looking down it, you're taking the whole image, right? So imagine clumping those trees closer together. Everything's going to be compressed, right, into your image processing faculties, your eyes or your eyesight, which is another. Why do you think that's another very interesting thing? Why all words have significance? So we have I and I, right? No association, no phonics are coincidental. Everything is for a very specific purpose. But yeah, we'll get back to that in a bit. Let me continue on with this. And yeah, we have to ask who you may be the devil or who is the Lord. Thinking about the Lord, break up the term Lord, L or D. Now, what could possibly be the significance? I've spoken about L and I've spoken about D, right? Representing the two opposing sides. We have the thought and we have the deed. First comes the thought, right? Then comes the word, then comes the deed. Or, you know, but first of all comes the thought. You can go straight into the deed, but you would have painted the picture in your own brain. So with every word, thought, you know, unsaid comes a picture. And as I say, the devil, the likes of the devil, the likes of the Lord, when you hear these words, you automatically go back to the earliest memories or the earliest pictures that are painted for us when we come across these terms. And usually it's all fire and brimstone with both, isn't it? The Lord and the devil. There's no pleasing anybody. So now we've come to this point, we can understand that there's a different story entirely going on. So when we look at the word Lord, it's L or D, right? L is the lower aspects. This is, if you will, got to do with the deeds or the acts. This is the material. It's the thought that fuels the act, right? So the thought is the immaterial aspect to us. So when we aim for the higher aspects, and I'm always aware of the law of reversal and everything, and I certainly will be in terms of the story I'm going to read later on. Yeah, L being the lower aspects or the tendency towards the lower aspects. We're cut in two. Remember, we have a material and an immaterial, and we can think the best or the worst, in other words, and we can do the best or the worst. And deep in our hearts, in the heart center, the heart of the human, H-U man, this is where we reside. And the eyes are the windows to the soul. Well, the soul just is U-Sol, U-S-O-L. And when you understand what Sol is, then what is the sun? Well, I might say the sun is Aristarchus, and I ain't shifting from that anytime soon. So that's where I'll be coming from. When I look at clues like a string of pearls, I pointed it out before, a pearl comes from an oyster, and that was the final solution to the Queen's riddle to Alice, and Alice Through the Looking Glass. I star, R-I star, cus. So that's the connection there. That won't make sense to a lot of people. Other people, you will have heard it before. But when I look at it here in this new context of the song by Bob Dylan, who I know is an enterprise or is a sort of a conduit, you know, a clue giver. Well, yeah, it stacks up. That's all I can say anyway. So, but you'll see later on why I'm justified. Then I'm just continue on. I don't want to be here all night. You might be a rock and roll addict prancing on the stage. You may have drugs at your command, women in a cage. You may be a businessman or some high degree thief. They may call you doctor or they may call you chief, but you're going to have to serve somebody. Yes, you are. You're going to have to serve somebody. Well, it may be the devil or it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. Oh yeah, just to say the Lord, L-O or D, L or D. So you have the choice. The D is the marble arch, top of the head, the brain, right? it's the half the theta. This is what ultimately the theta represents. And when you have the circle, the zero, right? The zero has no beginning and no end. You can't qualify zero. What is meant by zero? What's another word for zero? Naught, astronaut, right? So reality is far fucking stranger than anything we were ever capable of dreaming up, and that's what I'm finding. That's where I'm at, and necessarily so as well. So anyone can call me crazy, and you can call me what you like, actually. But you're going to have to serve somebody if you have a legal name. You are. I don't. I don't mean that, but it's, you know, you're going to have to serve somebody. But yeah, Lord, D is the marble arch, the top of the head, or the higher aspects within us all. So we have the higher aspects within the material and the immaterial. That is the virtues and the angelic tendencies. And then with the lower aspects, we have the vices, the succumbing to the material temptations, if you will, and the demonic, right? The demonic. For instance, if we were all creator, if we were all by true nature an aspect, and therefore all of the creator, to harm your fellow man for the sake of personal greed or whatever, well, this would be the utmost of sins, wouldn't it, really? You know, so thinking about things in that possible context, and that would have justification. So I would encourage that, no matter what word, and especially the more basic the word. God, for instance, wise dog, God backwards. There's a real good reason for that. You know? Well, again, everything comes from where I'm concerned, or where everything concerned where I'm coming from. But you can tease the dog, you can bite his ear, you can sort of tie something to his tail, and I'm going mad, and you know, next minute you're over comforting him or patting him, and just let his head rest on your leg, and he's asleep. He's gone. Fuck what happened previously. Just everything is gone. So he sort of lives in the moment, for the very most part, you know. And I think that is something very profound, I guess, to say about the greater picture here, when we come back to questioning, well, what is a moment itself? What is time? All time is based on the sun's passage. Again, getting back to what is the sun? If we can answer that question, well, then a whole lot of things can make sense. And, well, I claim to have answered it anyway. And I'm going to, once I just go through these songs, I'm going to post a very fascinating piece of information. I'm actually going to play the video, and I'll say it now as a disclaimer. This is just for educational purposes, no profit to be made from any of this. And all my natural creator-given unalienable rights are in full force and effect, so no trickery afoot, or can be afoot. So I'll play that in a few seconds, and I'll talk you through that. But let me just go through this a bit more quickly, actually, because time is a passing. Time is an anagram of me, it, or Emmett as well. Emmett von Braun from Back to the Future. An actor just as much as that other actor was, Werner von Braun. Do you remember who left the clue on his death's tomb? Very humble it was, his death's tomb, or his death's we call it headstone. Yeah. So theater, all clues for us, so you can pay attention or not. That's your own business. If you have the same questions that we all have, I think you should be paying attention, because the story is already written. You can go out and stamp your feet all you like to whoever you like to tell you the story, to get the story told. But even if the truth was told you, you wouldn't know it. How would you know it? You have to garner it yourself. And I think this is the ultimate point, and the ultimate sort of raison d'etre in one sense, the reason for us being here. Because exploration has been coming up, you can call away, off you go, you won't have my help. If I was going exploring, I know where I'd go, and there's a few people who know where we'd go as well. Shit, I'm sorry now, you know who you are anyway. You know who you are, and funnily enough, it connects to the dodo. There's a 33-foot sloop that sails a certain course, and I won't tell you the name, secret, but that's something we found out on the course of our journey here. And that's where I'd go. If that's where I'd head if I was going for exploration. But otherwise, exploration, it's a red herring. You know, think about the logistics of it, think about the practicalities of it, and think about the timeline as well. What are you going to say? Let's hope to do this by 2030. Let's get everyone organized and go against the governments. Well, why not go against the governments in the first place? You know, because when we understand that the governments are there to serve us, right? Now, when we understand who us is, i.e. man, right? Human. They say human is defined as monster in Black's Law Dictionary. You can understand why that might be, because remember, if you are not Hugh, right? You're just a hue of you. Well, then you would be a monster because you wouldn't be of complete original form, right? So this is a suit we wear. So in that sense, I can see why it might be defined as monster. But once we understand our significance here, and our authority, really, our true authority, we are the highest authority as man and woman. Anyone who takes an office or puts on a suit will be to serve us, or will do so to associate with a private company, which has absolutely no fucking business with us. You don't have any business with any, because any fucking can go in and set up a company, and you know, there's that ultimate distinguishing line between obviously the flesh and blood man and any artificial entity created for the purposes of business and commerce. So this is the true distinction. So yeah, this should be the first protocol, and then raid their fucking documents, right? Let's be having all the fucking information that you've garnered throughout the years on behalf of the people earthwide. This is my point. This is what I'm saying. This would be a much more purposeful endeavor. And this is where talking about other things in unison with the massive lie that is flat Earth. And certain things are more important, because if you find out that the nature of your home has been deception from the outset, well, what about the nature of you yourself? You know? What about the crime that's committed there? So that is the bigger crime. That is the bigger key, if you will, or secret that needs keeping. And that is a legal name fraud. You know, we go around thinking we know that, but this is taken advantage of because the distinction is not recognized between man and a name. What's in a name? Well, a name is an anagram of amen, right? You say amen in hope, don't you? There's more to it than that as well. There is a positive story to all of this. It's all for the purposes of learning, ultimately, you know. And yeah, a bit of unity on those fronts. Or what I've said is the three things: the flat Earth, the legal name fraud, and the 9/11 media hoax. That would open the gateway then to investigation into all the other media hoaxes, including 7/7. Did you know that 343 firefighters were said to have died in 9/11? Well, 343, when factored out, gives you 7 times 7 times 7. Now, on 7/7/7, right, 2005, we have the 2 and the 7. On 7/7, you had the biggest atrocity in London's history, or in England's history, apparently, atrocity in inverted commas, the 7/7 bombings. Bold and brilliant, bold and outright terror, I think was written on one of the buses, pictured, one of the buses blown up. It's all theater, right? So the point being that, you know, getting the masses to be aware of these mass media hoaxes, in conjunction with the legal name fraud, in conjunction with the shape and nature of our home, then you fucking take back what's ours, and you gather all the information that has been meticulously and cooperatively gathered throughout however long by whoever. I think the shape and nature of this earth is always known, and there are forces in operation here that we have no idea. We have no idea. I pointed out before about the simulation aspect of things, and it's almost a sort of a logical necessity. Okay, that's the phone. I'll just leave that ring out now. Can feck off the bollocks. No, I'll leave him off because he's just ringing just to say how you doing. I'll call him back. But yeah, this is what's called for, and you know, when in unison, then people can wake up. the biggest people that they fear, they in inverted commas, we don't know who the fuck they are, is the women. You know, women in one sense, obviously in a clear sense, bear the children, and I'm not going to say universally it's the case, but it's said that they have the best for their children in mind, or more so in general than the father, right? But yeah, that's the biggest fear for the women woken up. Imagine all women woke up to the fact that their children have been lied to pretty much about every single thing by officialdom, by authority from day one. They would be fucking. There would be war. There would be instant uprise. First of all, because of the women's ire, but secondly, because of what the men, the lovers of the women, will do to satisfy that. You know, yeah, that's what we need. But no, we're kept on the same issues again and again. That's what I say about flat Earth. It's fucking stagnated. It's stagnated. The same questions are being asked again and again, juggled over, thrown over to. It's like playing tennis, right? But you can only see one side. You can see most flat earthers don't hide their faces, but yeah, the other side, yeah, they're all in black masks and long black cloaks, just throwing back balls, taking balls out of their. Out of hidden concealed compartments within and throwing them back over. This sort of thing, this futile thing, and this thing just seems to go on forever and ever. Let me, while I think of it now, just admonish Anthony Riley and say, you fucking showed yourself up, man, but I'm not going to make any more judgment than that. You know, when it came to discussion, I think it was yesterday, on Nathan Oakley's Flat Earth Debate channel about the legal name fraud, Riley, a solicitor, if he's honest and above board, he has a qualification in this. He knows about the legal name. He should have been the one shouting from the rafters there. We're all about truth and honesty, right? There's no greater dishonesty or untruth told us as mankind than that regarding the legal name. So he was absolutely quiet. He slunk off into a corner and said, "Fuck all." Not an honest physician. Now you know where his gate is. But the fact that he's a solicitor. Again, I think it's gameplay. It's gameplay. You've got to figure these things out yourself. You don't need him to tell you about the legal name fraud. There's plenty of other stuff written. You would expect him to be very vocal on it, considering he has been through the system and has studied all of this stuff and knows it more intimately than you do. But yeah, we can see that there is a limitation into what these people can do, because you see, if he's limited in terms of talking about that, then he'll be limited about talking about other things. And I've been saying it for a while. He's a solicitor. He solicits. He's here to court controversy. Always calling out and always interacting with ballers, if you want to call them that. You forget about the labels, but these liars and actors, how transparent they are at this stage. Like, we've moved well beyond that. Anyone who defends a ball and comes in and does it consistently, it's just a bluffer. You can understand some new people coming on board and having a curious, sort of a humble attitude, understanding that people come before them asking the same questions. So they need to listen as opposed to be vocal. But yeah, in general, yeah, these people are easy to identify. But that doesn't mean that we can take safe haven in the knowledge that all flat earthers, because they show their faces, are above board. Not a chance. Very vast majority of them are people put in place, especially those from the very start. And again, to serve as, we can look at it, you could look at it in a few different senses. They could be the worst enemies of all of us, or they could be the best friends of all of us. You know, we just don't know. This is the thing. I like to think the more positive thought. And as after that, I tend or try not as much as I can to cast judgment, just to recognize that these people are here, and like the rest of the arena, I'm talking about the conspiracy arena in general, it's completely populated with people put in place, for whatever their ultimate reasons. I've made the analogy to boot camp before, where, when you go into, especially by some of the movies, I've never been to boot camp myself, but when you go into, everything's horrible, the drill master is back in this, that, and the other, a red tyrant. But yeah, when you go through it, you learn and you come to appreciate and appreciate different things and think in a different way. So all is never as it seems, and we have to realize that we don't know about a lot of stuff. So anyway, let me just move on here, for fuck's sake. You may be a state trooper, you might be a young Turk, you might be head of some big TV network, you may be rich or poor, you may be blind or lame, you may be living in another country under another name. But you're going to have to serve somebody. Yes, you are. You're going to have to serve somebody. Yes, it may be the devil. Well, it may be the devil, it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. Well, I dare anyone get that high. Well, it may be. I was going to sing it in Bob Dylan. You may be construction working on a home. He sings that, Jason. You may maybe live in a mansion. You may live in a dome. So there we have Bob. Bob was a flat earther. He mentioned living in a dome. Why would he bring that up? You know, to rhyme with home. There's plenty of other possibilities there, and indeed, yeah. I've said all these characters know that the Earth is flat and stationary. You've been given clues from the very earliest of times. You know, the Beatles were the only ones with their Fool on the Hill, or you know, many other songs. Not a chance. So there you have it. If you missed it, you may be rich or poor. You may be blind or lame. You may be living in another country under another name. Sorry. Next one. You may be a construction worker working on a home. You may be living in a mansion. You might live in a dome. I mean, where would you live in a dome? What context does that mean in terms of everyday life? Where would you find people living in a dome? The only dome we can associate with is an igloo, really, right? That's pretty much it. Who else? What other nation? Or, you know, something similar, some sort of simple and easily constructed makeshift place like that, although I know some igloos can be pretty. No, they can't be actually. I mean, the fucking heating bills. The heating bills must be enormous for the igloos. But yeah, why would you mention dome? Well, because when the time is right, well, you can see it in a new context. Now you'll know what he knew 50 years ago. So what else might he know that you have no clue about? I would say a whole hell of a lot, right? But interesting about the dome is the dome, and there's a dodoism there. It has been credited and noted before, the do-dome, right? Or do-mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And in between do and mi, we have ray, the ray of sun, right? But yeah, there's Bob telling himself, slipping it in. But then we think about the first verse, right? And his choice of the heavyweight champion of the world and long string of pearls. So you might think I'm clutching at some vague straws here, but no, I don't think so. Anyway, let me continue on. It's not that important. You might own guns. You might even own tanks. You might be somebody's landlord. You might even own banks, but you won't have to serve somebody. I wouldn't, if I was writing that, I wouldn't have put landlord in there because it's repeated, of course, in the course. But is that him trying to give you a clue? We have a great sort of appreciation when we hear the word landlord, because there's landlords everywhere, right? We've all rented at some stage, and some still do, and we can understand that context. So maybe he was inserted to bring attention to a different context within the word Lord. And of course, landlords own properties, right? So this is about the material and possession. And as I talked about in L or D, there's no material goods in D. This is the thought process, thought, or thought, T-H-O-T-H. There we have the O, or the zero in the middle of the thought, right? And again, the O, what is the O? Well, the O is the everything. It was everything. And what is the TH? The TH is the theta then. This is associated with H, the human condition, right? So we're making that distinction. Overall, there is the O. Then in this, we have the twisted O. That's the 8, the infinity sign. So we're in a divided state. That's where the do comes into it, right? Infinity, side alongside. I showed this the other night, and it's very close to dodo. Do is 2 in Irish, so we have something cleaved down the center, and indeed the O has been twisted, right? So yeah, waffle to lots of people, but not to me. And indeed, where can we find the 8 inside in the center of Aristarchus? Anyone I've shown it to, you can't deny there's an 8 in the very center of it, the heart of it. So this is not, none of this is incidental. And when we think about 888 being the number of Jesus, we're told, that was an interesting one. When you get a deck of cards and you You look for the center card, it's an 8, right? The ace folds on the 2, because the ace is 11 or 1. That's significant as well. And it's also the A as in Adam or Amen. That's again a tendency towards the upper leanings, the D or the T. That's where the TH comes into things. If we think about a H, capital H, right? So heart-centered. You bring the two sides together, right? There you have the cross. Then you raise the crossbar. There you have the capital T. The TT races. When you put TT, which also represents 12, 12, or 144, does that ring? Would you ever hear the more 1 minute on the doomsday clock, 1 minute to midnight? Well, what does midnight represent? And again, if everything is inverted, well, doomsday, we can take it to mean the opposite. But yeah, TT, 144, 144,000. But also, if you put T, capital T, write it down, you have what looks very similar to pi, and pi represents theta, because the symbol for theta is the 0 and the 1. The 1 represents the material, the countable, right? The 0, you can't count 0, right? The 1 represents the countable or the material, and the 0 represents the uncountable or the immaterial. And it's all there is. So when we have the 1 acting as a crossbar for the 0, we have a circle and its diameter. And the relationship between a circle and its diameter, the circumference of a circle to the diameter, is a ratio known as pi, which is very similar to T written side by side, which is 3.14, right? That is to the first 2 decimal places, 3.14. 3.14, if written down on the page, if you were in a maths class, that's the international symbol for multiplication. When you multiply 3 times 14, you get 42. Everything is reversed. 42 backwards is 24. It turns out that 24, or 888, is the number of Jesus. Why might that be? There in the heart of Aristarchus, we have the 8, right? And Aristarchus, what's in the name again? Aristarchus is an anagram of Christ's aura. So when we make our way down the conspiracy pathway, Jesus wasn't a literal man living in the desert. And the story, a literal story, it's all symbolic. And Jesus actually represents the sun. This is all we were handed on a plate. This is, but there's more to that story, of course. There's truth to it. But Jesus being the sun, there's that intimate connection made for us. So if the sun is Aristarchus, then Jesus can be said to be Aristarchus. Well, if Jesus is Christ, Aristarchus is an anagram of Christ's aura. Aura is A-U-R-A. Ra relates to the sun, or R-A, right? A again pointing upwards. So like that's the capital. The letter M is also another arrow pointing upwards. The W then and the V point downwards. Again, not in a judgmental sense, but in a material versus immaterial, or different subsets within those two categories. And so, yeah, that's the gist of it. I mean, to understand that these are the sort of components to the story. As I understand it anyway, as I'm sort of moving along and moving my way through. But yeah, if Aristarchus is an Christ's aura, AU represents gold, right? And Christ's aura then translates as Christ's golden sun. Yeah, why would you encode something like that within that? Because that's what happens. First of all, you have the truth, right, or the picture, and then you are describing the picture. So you choose the letters, or you devise the letters. All these things have been devised. I say English was the first language 420 years ago, or thereabouts. 420 years since the non-existent dodo. So just think of it like this. The dodo never existed. So imagine you found out tomorrow that the dodo never existed. First of all, you'd be a million miles behind me. But I'd throw a few breadcrumbs along the way, or probably more than a few sliced pans along the way. But if you found out, first of all, that the dodo never existed, or if you looked into its story and saw the ridiculous nature of it in a very easy manner, well, then what possible significance may it have? And, well, it has the utmost significance. And It's 420 years ago since this year, 2018, since the non-existent dodo was discovered. So if the dodo has a relation to flat Earth, and I pointed this out already, it relates to the face of the flat Earth post-inundation. So the whole face, the whole Earth was inundated. The oceans weren't natural, so the whole Earth was inundated, and then a changing face jutted out from the waters, right? So that face was encoded within this non-existent bird, the dodo. This is the greater story here. But also there's always two sides to every story, two sides to every coin. The dodo relates to the internal story as well, and the internal story of division. And that's the more significant feature of the dodo. But that's a different story. All words are chosen specifically. So yeah, 420 years ago, I say the English language was devised, and every other language and in tandem. People ask me, how do these stories translate? They can see especially some of the ballers, you know, I used to be on Discord and until the bastards porn bomb my channel, so you can't have any relations with them anymore because they're nuts anyway. They're not nuts, they're some very intelligent people there. And I never gave a shit. I talk about this stuff. And but they couldn't understand how if the English language was the first language, what about the rest of the languages? I mean, what is the same story? This, you know, these same clues and pointers you're getting from anagrams or from words chosen. How does that work in other languages? As I pointed out, well, all words are chosen and used based on a picture, right? Words are used as a sort of a tool to describe a picture, or if you will, a truth. And if English was the first language, all of the rest of the languages would have been developed in tandem or even separately, but the same picture would have been painted into the language. So I know certainly French is a very encoded language as well, and all languages are related in some sense. So that's certainly where I'm coming from. You're going to say I'm crazy. Well, you tell me then the new origins of the Old English language. You're only after coming to flat Earth, and everything you held dear as true has been thrown out. So what are you going to cling on to? So anyway. Yeah, so that's probably the reason why Bob is pointing out, or his use of repetition there when he puts in landlord. You may be a preacher with your spiritual pride. You may be a city councilman taking bribes on the side. You may be working in a barber shop. You may know how to cut hair. You may be somebody's mistress. Maybe somebody's there, but you're going to have to serve somebody. Yes, you're going to have to serve somebody. Well, then maybe the devil. So you sort of get a bit high there, which I had a bit difficult to get into. Or it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. You might like to wear cotton. You might like to wear silk. You might like to drink whiskey. You might like to drink milk. You might like to eat caviar. You might like to eat bread. You may be sleeping on the floor, sleeping in a king-size bed, but you're going to have to serve somebody. Yeah, you're going to have to serve somebody. Maybe the devil and maybe the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. You may call me Terry. You may call me Timmy. You may call me Bobby. You may call me Zimmy, because you're a man of many faces, aren't you, Bob? You may call me RJ. You may call me Ray. You may call me anything, but no matter what you say, you're still going to have to serve somebody. Yes, you are. You're going to have to serve somebody. Well, it may be the devil or maybe the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. And many, yeah, that's got to serve somebody. Go on YouTube and get the original. Do yourself a favor. Many point to Bob Dylan has been part of the day, the Illuminati, the Masons, or whatever, the dark side, when he admitted in an interview that he was serving, I think he called it the Great Commander, maybe the Great Architect. You can call it the Great Architect or the Chief, yeah, something like that. So everyone took it that he meant, of course, Lucifer or the devil himself. So more popcorn fed to us, you know. You get to see all of these things for very specific reasons. So don't fucking kid yourself. Don't sell yourself short in the brains and the intelligence wise. Don't let someone wind you up like and not cop on to, well, in some cases, very transparent wind ups. Certainly for me anyway. So. Yeah, I'll leave that. So I know 444 Truth enjoys Bob Dylan songs, so let's say that one's for you, 444. And yes, remember, just in general, my thoughts overall, you've got to serve somebody. If you do choose to serve somebody, find out about them. Find out about them and find out to be sure about them. Ask yourself the basic questions. How do I know that this is as it seems. Why do I choose to serve this person or this entity or this power? You know, and that applies to anybody. Doesn't matter then where you end up. At least you will have some sort of sure and strong footing. Even I would even exercise caution when, absolutely grant miracles, I grant intervention, but it's just about the source of the intervention. This is the point. This is the point. And I've continually said, this is your story. We are part of this greater picture. So we can sort of have faith in ourselves, and we can understand that all of the stories revolve around us. It's about us, you as the individual. Everyone is catered for. Everyone must have access to the truth. And yeah, it's you that's been catered for here. So it is your own personal journey. And when we externalize it, it's then that we lose the meaning. This is what I think the ultimate message is. Jesus is within. And there's also, when we say stuff like that, Jesus is within, it is in a symbolic sense, but it is also in a literal sense. There's two sides to every coin. For me, Jesus is within. Well, the Liberty Flame, the subdetached Statue of Liberty is the heart, right? It's the heart of matters, but it's also the central peak in the heart of Aristarchus. And this is where Aristarchus gets to the very heart of our matters as well. So again, this is, how would you quantify the picture that may be going on? You know, again, most people will write this off as being nonsense, but leave themselves in a big black gaping hole and be happy with that, not knowing what the fuck is what, not even making any progress towards something. So that's where I'm coming from. It's my own personal. I don't give a shit if anyone believes me or not. I'll say what I have to say, with the understanding that, well, at least before you write it off as nonsense, and if you're so inclined, you can look into it yourself. So I'll be posting something in a couple of minutes, and it's very interesting indeed, just on the same topic. I can just briefly whip through that and get on to what I came on to do, just while I wait for my brother to come home, who's been very kind to pick up a few cans as well. So I'll shut down the hang up before he comes along, and so I've got a bit yet, but I get going. Back, oh yeah, get rid of that, and we can get rid of second song by someone called Alison Krauss. Song for Life lyrics is, I don't drink as much as very simple. I don't drink as much as I used to lately. It just ain't my style. And hard times don't hurt like they ought to. They pass quicker, like when I was a child. Somehow I learned how to listen to the sound like the sun going down and the magic the morning is bringing. It's a song for a life I have found. It keeps my feet on the ground. And then just the second verse, the midsummer days sit so heavy, they just blow like a breeze through my mind, and nothing appears in a hurry to make up for some old lost time. Somehow I've learned how to listen to sound like the sun going down, and the magic the morning is bringing is a song for the love I have found that keeps my feet on the ground. So quickly into the last one then, My Heart and Lute. No more significant song in existence for me anyway, personally, to be honest. Maybe some of my own personal songs, I'll put it like that. And but My Heart and Lute, yeah, that is just a story attached to it, and knowing that it was put there for very specific reasons as well. But yeah, let me just quickly go through it. I give thee all I can no more, though poor the offering be. My heart and lute is all the store that I can give to thee. A lute whose gentle song reveals the soul of love full well, and better for a heart that feels much more than lute can tell. In the heart's not of earth and ether. Jesus is always pointed to his heart. Right? You ask yourself why. Jesus is also androgynous in his mirror down the center. I don't know if anyone else made this association as well, but I certainly did. And it's with the Michelangelo's The Last Supper. Michelangelo didn't exist. That's Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. Leonardo da Vinci didn't exist. It's just a conduit, a fabricated character, persona, to pass on clues, if you will. But we have Jesus in the center, and we have 6 and 6 each side, right? And we know, well, Jesus representing the Son, 6 on each side representing the 6 and 6 signs of the zodiac. So we have the stars all connected to one source, right? This is what Jesus represents as Aristarchus. Christ's aura is Aristarchus. So we have one source, and the rest of the luminaries then are just a manifestation of this source. And this is what the layers into the Last Supper represents. But I don't know if anyone has actually spotted this. Each character on the left has a counterpart on the right of Jesus. Each one of them. And very easy to spot as well. It's all about colors. When we understand that, how can we apply it? Well, someone called Gleam, if you're listening, Gleam, you mentioned something that I already sort of, I wouldn't say quite came to that conclusion. Well, I suppose I did, yeah. Because when we look at the picture as a whole, and we look at, if you think in terms of a reflective surface and one source shining around it, but if you think about how a spoon, the underside of a spoon reflects, right? You're going to get a mirroring going on. So the fact that we have the southern stars, you'll be able to equate it as the southern stars appearing to be a mirrored version of the northern stars, right? If, as we put it, northern and southern hemisphere, this hemisphere is just applied to the barrier itself. The ground is flat. So the barrier itself, this reflective screen, if you will, very natural to understand. It's a reflective screen as well. If we think in terms of electromagnetics, a barrier, invisible barrier holding back waters beyond. So anything broadcast around that will be reflected back at us. But yeah, the barrier itself is, we find the equator. So it's the highest point, vertical point from the land to the barrier. And that's along the equatorial areas, roughly. Not quite, but yeah, this applies to the barrier itself. But yeah, the southern aspect compared to the northern aspect, there seems to be a mirroring, and I get why that is. And I think this is what's reflected then in works like The Last Supper. So if you want to bring it up yourself and see what the fuck is this guy talking about, see if you can match a character on the left to the characters on the right. Don't think you need to get too deeply involved with the story. Remember, all of this information is, this is what I like to say to myself as well, it's simple, right? It's simple. It doesn't take many years of study. It doesn't take, initiation into secret organizations where you can get hold of secret information that you'd otherwise have no access to. No, that's not how it works. This is the story of us. And when you're ready, when you take an interest, first of all, when you put a thought that way, then you'll be able to find the clues. And ultimately, yeah, make your way out of the maze, make your way home. So yeah, challenge to anybody who's interested in that sort of stuff. I have much more to say about that as well. But yeah, it's all a story of Jesus being the sun, Aristarchus in the center, and we have this mirroring left to right, or hemisphere to hemisphere, according to the nature of the barrier. My heart and lute. Sorry, that's what I say. So the loving song may fail at last to keep life's clouds away, at least to make a lighter pass, and gild them if they stay. And even if care moments flings a discord over life's happy strain, let love but gently touch the strings, 'twill all be sweet again. Strings, ST rings. My heart and lute, heart is an anagram of earth, and lute backwards is etol, my earth and star. They're making that intricate association between the earth and, first of all, the singular star. Etol is star in French, singular, or by the sound of it. Or it could be plural as well, I guess, by the sound of it. But by the spelling, lute, L-U-T-E-E-T-U-L, singular. And yeah, they're making that association, my earth and star. And for me, Aristarchus is not just all the luminaries, it's the earth itself. It's everything. It's everything. It's the source of everything. Strange sounding. And look, anyone who's not interested in what I'm saying now, you just best piss off, honestly, because I'm going to be sort of speaking along these lines anyway. And especially when it comes to what I'll read out here, I'll just be expressing my thoughts, and my thoughts are sort of centered around that. I know the earth is flat and stationary. I don't need to spend any more time with anybody debating points of that have long since been put to bed. And yeah, I realize there's a different puzzle in play, and there are great inroads to be made as well. And I have on another show or another hangout, I'll maybe tell tell everything how I see it, because I have more to say on what I think ultimately the story is, and again, it's a picture that's painted for us everywhere. Yeah, kingdom come, kingdom come. One of the basic communion, right? None of it's when we think about it in that greater sense, well, we are everything. We are the thought, and we are the word, and we are the deed. So this is what we have to take into account. And when we do that, well, the game changes. The game changes. The reality changes. And who's to say ultimately this isn't the purpose of? I can easily see us in a timeless state entering something like this for the purposes of going through the experiences, grand, but ultimately to figure it out. When we all die, probably people wait and figure, well, how'd you get on, lad? I think grand, I think grand, but I should have fucking spotted that. I should have spotted that one as well. Fucking dough. But that's I can see that somewhat, and that's my heart and lute. I'll leave that there because I've spoken many times about that, but I could definitely go back to that, and I could go back to so many things that would be worthwhile talking a little bit more in depth on, but that's not my way. Let me go into chat here. Caridides. But that's coming through fine. Let me just reduce it down. We're down to 144, so I look fine. That's the reason I knew I looked fine. We're down at 144 from my aspect here. I don't really care about the external look too much anymore. That's not who I am. As I said earlier on, when I had felt a little tickle coming along in my throat, we have the TH in the throat as well, right? I said, fuck it, I have to get some water now and gargle it. But no, I then thought, hang on, you drink urine. This is exactly what urine is good for. And that's indeed what I did. But however I look to the onlooker from the externals, from the outside, my general health is very good. My general health is excellent. I do have my issues. Us Irish have bad teeth and a few other little issues like that. Definitely had a tough time of it in Ireland. Everything could have been so different. But I say that's for a particular reason. And indeed, I have in other musings connected to Ireland to to Aristarchus and Ireland. I are land, eye of land. It's like the Isle of Man, eye of man. I've already pointed out there within Aristarchus, we can see what they call the all-seeing eye. Now, you mightn't believe me on that, but I can't do anything for your eyes. Whatever is really going on, these things are all connected somehow, and more than just somehow for me anyway. So, okay. Let me just mention a few other things. I have One Conscience, his YouTube channel up. I haven't looked at it yet. Same with Beliefs the Thief. Sorry, man, I'll give it a look at it. I'm not good at these things in general, but I will give you a look at your channel. But One Conscious especially, I just briefly looking at the cover page, I've been seeing you pointing out temples and different ancient mechanisms and designs throughout Earth. Well, you're going to be very interested in Aristarchus. I've already pointed out that Aristarchus and Stonehenge, this is what it's there. We know about the fabrication. That also ties in Will Smith / Barack Obama with fakery, when we have that famous picture of him walking by Stonehenge, and you see what looks to be fucking makeup artist work, movie work on one of the pillars, one of the stones in Stonehenge. And that's indeed what it turns out to be, But again, we have the story leaked out to us. So we're always meant to know that, or meant to consider fakery here. We can consider it in conjunction with the Obama fakery, who I say absolutely certain I'll take anyone's bet, any money like, I'll take it off you and I'll match it. Well, I'll try match it. I'll do my best to match it. I'll take that bet. But I know I would give you, let's say you say, fuck it, that's easy money. I'm going to go for 50 grand here. And you were deadly serious about it. And I had 50 grand at my disposal, or someone to back me. I would go for that, but I would give you a 7-day cooling off period. And I know that bet would never be brought to fruition then, because by you taking it that seriously in the first place, you will investigate the possibility, and needs must. Well, as far as I'm concerned, anyway, that explains the confidence. You will find out what I found out. We were always meant to find it out, though. So again, all the clues are presented to us. That changes the nature of this experience in a big way, the nature of the game. And yeah, Stonehenge is an homage to Aristarchus. I put the two side by side. I could do it now and spend another hour doing it, but don't need to do that. I'm going to show you something very interesting about Aristarchus in a second. But yeah, it's the same with the Hill of Tara here. One conscious, if you're watching. So you should bring up something on the Hill of Tara. And what does it emanate? Again, Aristarchus. It's the same thing. And doesn't it turn out that Aristarchus is an anagram of Icarus Wraths? Now we know the story of Icarus. He lost his wings by flying too close to the sun. So there's that sun reference. And a wrath then is a fairy fort, which is exactly what we find at the Hill of Tara, and strewn throughout Ireland, and strewn throughout so many different countries in different forms, the earth. And I could go into much more detail than that. One thing I have to do is bring up Crater Barringer and Aristarchus and show you how one is a mirror of the other. Impossible, you say. Crater, creator. The most mysterious crater on the moon is Crater Aristarchus. Sounds so very much like crater, creator, doesn't it? Creator, crater, with the exception of an or. So crater, R, creator. Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna write it off. Who cares? Not who cares, do care, like, I mean, but I don't want you to write it off. But there's Crater Barringer in Arizona and many other craters as well. Easter Island features, and you know what features some very good clues as well. Google Earth, you know, the way they have the structures underwater and the imprints. Yeah, very, very insightful, very, very informative. And I think, again, all purposefully done. We were handed all the tools to make these sort of connections and comparisons. So one conscious, yeah, I'll definitely go through some of your videos, man or woman, and I would encourage you to, yeah, definitely take the idea of Aristarchus a little step further in terms of your own self. Remember that we are given a massive clue from mainstream science, who tell us that on the most mysterious object on the universe, in the universe, or whatever the system, the moon, we have the most mysterious object in terms of Crater Aristarchus. So yeah, if they know it's all nonsense and they're presenting us a story, it's like it's a big signpost, isn't it? It's a big point of interest. Now, even if that was the case, you certainly have a context for everything, and I certainly do have that anyway. I mean, to state that all of the luminaries have one source and one source alone, I don't think there's many people out there who've said that. And it's not about numbers saying it, but it's not an idea that people have considered in general, you know. And I would say when you do consider it, then there's a whole different route you can travel down. So yeah, just to mention one conscience, I'll definitely take a look at that. Same belief is a thief. I'll take a look at what you had to say, man. So okay, before I move on, let me just go into chat, say welcome to everybody. Yeah, belief is a thief. Thank you, man. I'm shit at fucking going through videos and all that sort of stuff. For the most part, I've left flat earth proofs or indications behind, you know, because I sort of settled on it. I know it. I know I don't need to look at more evidence showing, unless it's something like, even though I was looking at Dwayne Kellum's the other evening, Robert Matthews left me a timestamp on Dwayne Kellum's latest video. And at that particular timestamp, yeah, the camera was just rotating back into position the way it caught a really nice image of the sun, and lo and behold, that cracked or fissured like quality surrounding the sun is present, and it's matched up to the other captures I've had from high altitude balloon footages from halfway across the world. So it is this pattern associated intrinsically and objectively with whatever the sun is. And once again, when we look at the moon, when we look at Aristarchus, we can see the same pattern, and the two can be matched up. So Aristarchus is the sun, proven, well, for me anyway, proven, taken and ran with. When we look at the moon, we're looking at a reflection of the sun, but it's all about kaleidoscopic sort of 4K reflection. So I say, and I maintain with excellent confidence, that all of the craters are one crater. We're looking at it from a disparate and different perspectives, magnifications, etc., conditions. This is all that's happening, from the very large to the very tiny. It's all the same thing. And what we're dealing with is sort of reflected overlays and other such visuals that confuse the whole, right? Confuse the whole issue. So when unraveled, it'll all reduce down to one thing. Well, Aristarchus, the only creator there is. So it goes deeper than that, as I say. So I'm just speaking roughly, and I will go on to just present a little piece of information. As I said earlier on with the disclaimer, this is for educational purposes. There's no copyright claim can be entertained here, because there's no purpose, or there's no intention to financially benefit in any way from this. Yeah, so just a few hellos. Jensen Fuckstick, how you doing, man? Okay. Belief is a thief. How you doing, Belief? Okay. Oh, okay. Belief is a thief. Definitely have a look at that. So yeah, no offense for not having looked at it to date. I'm just not very good at that sort of stuff. We're sort of out of practice as well, out of habit. But Sandra, how you doing? P900 Cool Pics. Dr. Dick Clicker. Okay. Dr. Dick Clicker reminds me of Dr. Stoppenflappen. He was the German man who invented the woman's brassiere, right? Dr. Stoppenflappen. So yeah, welcome, Dr. What is it? Dick Clicker, okay. I'll message in tonight, but that's to be expected. A bit of leniency from the wrenches, I guess, but look, it's up to your own discretion. If they're reasonable enough, some of them can be quite funny, but I mean, we still, like flies, we can just flick them off when they cross the line. Chris, how you doing, Chris Hayes? Good to see you. It's 10:30 already. Oh, it's not actually. It's 10 past, so I'm glad about that. A bit to go yet. Flatter Chord Music, how you doing? I won't give out any more wrenches. I have no hesitancy in general with flatter chord music, only because I'm going to remove all wrenches. And I mentioned why there earlier on. It appears that people with wrenches can start fucking around with the comments, so we don't want that. But yeah, thanks for coming along. Jose, how you doing, Jose? Good to see you, man. Fair play to you for shouting out the dodo and Aristarchus today, man. I had to laugh at that. That was excellent. Immediately retracted, of course, because these are dirty words now, dirty terms. But fair play to you, man. I did leave a little comment in the chat about Discord and how well, you know the nature of the arena itself. If you do go in with the intention of changing any minds, you're not going to get there, because these people already know the earth is flat and they're defending a position, and they will do so until they're told not to. You just have to decide why they're defending this position and what else is there to learn beyond your current position. If you still need convincing that the earth is flat and stationary, go away and convince yourself, then come back. It's not a matter of some piece of evidence now going to sway it either way, you know. So that's what I'd say. There's much more to learn. And it's the purpose of these people to sort of absorb your time and energies, having these futile, fruitless debates again and again. The one thing I will say is that there is the possibility that by being questioned and by being challenged, you will definitely increase your own skills, and hopefully you will have a conduit for those energized thoughts, if you will, into some greater questioning. So I would just encourage you not to get too stuck there. It can absorb your time away. But listen, everyone to their own. Appreciate the shout out, and you're good in my book, Jose. Definitely, man. So if it turns out that you're a bollocks, well, fair enough, you know. But I can't see that happening. Excellent, man. Shout out to the dodo and Aristarchus. Excellent. Excellent. So yeah, Sandy at 123, how you doing, Sandy? Give you credit for the suggestion that Theresa May and Mark Thatcher might be one and the same. Fucking excellent. Imagine that, Sandy. Imagine that came out and there was some semi-serious investigation into it. Imagine the job that someone like the Morgile could do, or someone with the necessary skills could do, as opposed to the makeshift job I did. And I still did a satisfactory job, you know. As I said, by turning pictures upside down, it's a very, very revealing process, you know, a very revealing thing to do, because our faces now are looking at something that we're familiar with, but we're seeing in a strange fashion. So all the artificiality will jump out at you. And when you can match up the mask wearer with the mask, well, then you have a match, right? So excellent. Always shout you out for that, Sandy. You definitely gave the suggestion that could be a possibility. So Mark Thatcher, apparent son of Maggie Thatcher, the Iron Lady. So there we have, Iron is F-E. So the F-E lady. These are all characters put in place. And well, beyond that, you're going to have to make what you make of it personally. For me, I see it all as theater, and there's a much greater personal mission, if you will, that you're on here. The way I see it, although I'm not set on that as well. I'm very dissatisfied with everything to an unbelievable level. I live my life from day to day, really, not knowing what to do tomorrow, where to plan towards. I mean, I've done a few hands-on things. I don't have a legal name. I've taken all the registration plates off my car, and I go around with, I don't give a fuck. The cops notice anyway. I think they know it anyway. 2 cops, when I was sleeping in the car, 2 cops came up. I recognized one from being there already. I'd spoken to them and just knocked on the window and woke me up, and I pulled down the window. He said, "You all right?" I said, "I'm all right." That was it. Walked away, even though the plates on my car, F-R-E. So did it purposefully, F-R-E. E101. So when you bring the 2 together, the 2 divided halves, you have free 101, or basically free. So I have done that. I've been to the army. I've been to the police. I've been to politicians. You know, I talk to people. I was speaking to a student just yesterday or the day before. I had a good chat with him. You just got to be open-minded about all of these things, and don't be expecting any results. You'll never see these people again. You know, just be yourself. Put some clues in their path, and most importantly, just you know, put the suggestion into their brain that maybe things aren't as they seem, you know. So yeah, I don't know what to do after this, except maybe, I don't know, go all the way. Again, everything is the story of us, and everything gets back to the very heart of our matters. But that's a different story. I'll continue on path tonight. Ranty Flat Earth, how you doing, Ranty? Good to see you back. Should watch chat more. All right. Well, I mean, I know that, but I have a habit of talking, and I'm not going to change that very quickly. But if I do that, Ranty, then you see, yeah, I know the issues there, and I definitely should. So apologies for that. Any questions there? Leave them down at the end. But yeah, anyone I missed there, sorry about that. I'll just, Lady Onyx, how you doing? Good to see you. Aeon, good to see you, Aeon. Few interesting things to go through here now, and have a bit of weed as well, so I can enjoy that, play a few more songs, and my brother gets in then, shut down. So yeah, welcome everybody, and yeah, there's no point in giving out any more wrenches anyway, because as I said, I'm going to have to take all the wrenches away and maybe start giving them out again. Lots of the comments aren't showing up, but one comment that did show up, which I'll get straight onto, is Mick Flat Earth Stillwater. He posted this link, and thank you very much for this, Mick, because this is only a recent thing that came out. So I'm going to play the first few minutes. Yeah, you'd be more than welcome, man. Flat Earth music. Well, you have some shared around, right? But yeah, well, I mean, don't get me started on the connections between Irving is here. How you doing, Irving? You know the connections. In a nutshell, Irving, if you're still in chat, will you just put down some connections between the dodo and ARISTARCHUS that you found? Or not ARISTARCHUS, the dodo and cannabis and 420. Don't even go into many details, man, I would say, and how it all connects back to Lewis Carroll as well in a big way. And Lewis Carroll, of course, been the inserter of the dodo within Alice in Wonderland, and where the dodo gives a good account of himself and a brief introduction to us. Anyway, yeah, let me thank Mick for the next link, and I'm going to play the first few minutes of it. And as I say, no copyright claim could be made because this is not for any personal profit or gain. So let me do that. You're going to enjoy this, and isn't the timing impeccable? And let me say this, I can talk about it actually after I play. Let me just move the hangout to the side here. But another brilliant mind fart from Pete. Some other people thought about it. I heard Ranty mentioning it later on after I thought about it. So it was sort of an independent thing, even though you could have had the idea ages ago, but just move the tab halfway to the side. Anyone then free to look at it, but you can't fill in the last vital digits. So let me share my screen. Can do brilliant as well. I can do the entire screen. So excellent. And let me go straight to here. So this is it. Now, well, hopefully that loads up now.
We're on the moon. They're cracked.
Okay. So this came out October 9, 2018 by anonymous official. No idea about this, but their avatar here is very, very interesting. Look at the laurel, the olive branches, olive, I love, and they're encoded within the UN, or they're included within the UN logo, the UN emblem, with the flat Earth map in the center. So if they're handing us these pieces of information, what is left to be sort of pieced together from these? So other than that, I don't know anything about this, but just that it's a recent offering. Mick Flat Earth Stillwater offered it, and I appreciate that, Mick. And the interesting part is just at the start. Now, a lot of these characters, David Wilcock is included, but remember, these people reach millions of people. These people are David Wilcock, clearly plants and people put in place, you know, but I call them clue givers. So the fact that the information is reaching millions of people, the idea being that, you know, when you hear this, you should be spurred on to investigate further if you're of the mind. So in terms of what I've been saying about ARISTARCHUS, the fact that this came out a few weeks ago, October 9th, very interesting indeed. And I have been saying, or I have been thinking at least, as I've been making progress, and I've indicated where there seems to be a good case to be made that it might be the case, in terms of the dodo and the face underneath the dodo's wing, when I found that treasure, if you will, then other versions seem to include this face. So it was more accessible to everyone. So it's like as if a clue is solved, then everyone else in the same quest, if you will, asking the same quest ions, you know, the path has been paved or carved, if you will. But yeah, so that's a possibility. I'm not saying that that's the case, but that's definitely a possibility. So when I play this, I can bear that in mind. So let me just go full screen here. I'm not sure. Let me just make sure it's coming through first. And let me hear the sound. So when I play that, yeah, okay, that seems fine. So it's called None of This Makes Sense. See this before it is deleted, 2018, 2019. I haven't even looked at it. All I did was look at the first few minutes, and let's just do that. So once again, no copyright claims can be made here for no reason. That's a disclaimer. This is for educational purposes only.
On the lunar surface by astronomers in the past.
And now let's go back to start.
66. A report was.
Let's go. I'm going to play a few minutes, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. And let me just go up a level or two.
In
360.
1966, a report was compiled for NASA by 4 of the top scientists and astronomers of the time. The report became known as the Translunar Phenomena Report. It was a compilation of reports of odd and strange lights seen on the lunar surface by astronomers in the past. These events included the sightings of moving objects, flashes of light, and many other odd events on the lunar surface. The people reporting these events on the surface of the moon were famous astronomers. In this compilation, there are many reports of odd and strange activity around the crater called ARISTARCHUS.
In 1966, Barbara Middlehurst presented a remarkable paper on transient lunar phenomena to NASA. And this was an exhaustive compilation of research data indicating anomalous light phenomena that have been occurring on the moon ever since the dawn of the telescope. These transient lunar phenomena include lights of different colors, some of which are solid, some of which are flashing. They include phenomena that stay still. They include phenomena that are moving. And in some cases, you have multiple groups of phenomena moving in different directions all at the same time. What's particularly of interest in this case is that many of these phenomena, about 60%, were seen around the crater Aristarchus. And when the Clementine space probe actually flew over the Aristarchus crater, a very clearly obvious blue dome is visible. Taken together, this study of transient lunar phenomena strongly suggests that there have been ongoing observations of extraterrestrial piloted vehicles that have existed around our moon and its surface for all of recorded history. This is not something that is hard to understand. These sightings were done independently all throughout the world, in some cases professionally, in some cases with amateur telescope operators. And the point is that when you are faced with this weight of data, you are looking at something that is actually genuine. This is an ongoing phenomenon, well documented. But then once the Apollo missions start, the blanket of secrecy and silence comes down, and you never hear about transient lunar phenomena again.
I guess the question.
Right, that's exactly where I posed it, and I didn't look any further. That's Jim Mars, another man put in place, like David Wilcock. But the fact that they're bringing so much attention to Aristarchus, well, for me, we're a step ahead here, right? We've identified Aristarchus as, well, I was going to say the decapitated tree of life, but we've identified it as, I've identified it to myself anyway, as that, but more particularly, it's emanating from the North Center, which itself is under a separate barrier than the barrier that we're under. The barrier that we're under begins low at the north, rises highest at its the equatorial areas, which for me is only around up to 60 miles, that sort of Kármán line distance, and then lowest again at the southern peripherals. But yes, I have encompassed this separate barrier around the North Center, behind which Aristarchus emanates as, yeah, been domed, as Wilcock makes reference to. So the fact that this has just come out in the last 2 weeks, let's say, even less, is very peculiar, isn't it? It's very peculiar, but let's not get caught up in the narrative that these people are presenting, because they haven't described what the moon is. So when we understand that the moon is a reflection of solidity, it's a reflection of the sun, right? This is why the sun and the moon are the same size. The reflections, one is a reflection of the other off of a contoured barrier. So the fact that the barrier is contoured is all important. It's not a planar mirror. It's not a convex mirror. It's a concave, right, as we're looking up. And again, we live in a bi-barrier, bi-ball system. And yeah, Aristarchus is within the northern confines, and that's where, maybe in real time, we can see a reflection of the solidity in terms of the moon, especially around Aristarchus, as you mentioned, 60%. But when we understand that everything is Aristarchus, so if we're looking at a reflection of things happening in real time, yes, that's not to say that there isn't this real-time reality associated with whatever is going on within that realm. It's just we have no access to it. When we see all this activity on the moon, and we can entertain that it is a reflection of this reality, well, that's at least a context provided, and it's a very fruitful context. And as I say, my own pathway here, I mean, I can't go through Hangouts that I've done ages ago and settle the matter, at least in my own brain, every new time, you know. Can't do that. When I say the Milky Way, absolutely satisfied the Milky Way is to be found on the moon, but I move beyond that. And that'll just be another one of these sweeping, vague statements made by Pete Shea that has no intrinsic meaning to the listener, but to me it has. And that has taken me along the pathway towards understanding that, yeah, we are looking at one thing and one thing alone when we look at the moon in a kaleidoscopically reflected form, and that is Aristarchus and its local surrounds. And the only place we can get images of Aristarchus is via the moon. But in one sense, the moon is the greatest blueprint in existence of one and the same thing. When we can do away with the reflected overlays, the reflected artifacts, and again, reduce everything to its basics, then we have this, the greatest blueprint in existence. And that's indeed why Stanley Kubrick named, in conjunction with Arthur C. Clarke, Aristarchus is an anagram of C. Arthur as is. Yeah, we can understand why they named the monkey or the ape to find the monolith, the key or the gateway to progress, if you will, evolutionary advancement, moon watcher. So for us, being the ape, right, going through this in mental terms, going through this evolutionary realization, yeah, we can look at the moon. The moon is our monolith. Monolith is one stone as well. So one stone is also Einstein. So yeah, that's the greater context. And yeah, the timing is interesting, isn't it? I have long since maintained, this is all for purposeful reasons, that Aristarchus is withheld, Aristarchus of Samos is withheld until the time is right. He should have been the name on the tip of every flat earther's tongue, because the returning bowler antagonists, who have been doing the same thing for years, should have been saying the matter is settled since Aristarchus of Samos put the sun at the center and the spherical bodies, planets, etc., rotating around 2,500 years ago or whenever. No, we don't get to hear that, though. But when the time, we always get to hear about Copernicus. And yeah, when the time is right, then we can see through it and we can understand that it's a big clue. So in conjunction with what David, the likes of David Cockhead here say, we can, yeah, pick up the baton and run with it, if you will. Once again, well, I already picked up the baton and I've come out a certain place anyway. So it's all about context. So Aristarchus, in the context that I use it, is the sole source of all the luminaries, and it emanates in whatever form it takes. Mount Meru, I've been talking about as well in relation to the central peak of Aristarchus, but there's more to the story than that, and maybe I can articulate that some other time where I'm at that. But yeah, that's fundamentally the situation, and I think this story is well known, and that's why everything is encoded for us in terms of clues inserted into many different works. And that's what I'll be getting onto in a second. The work that I want to read, which is what I came on for. I'm sorry about the chat. I mean, I definitely actually I should go back and just, because I did say to put questions in at the bottom. Yeah, that's good. That's good, Jason Fuckstick, or Jensen Fuckstick, Barrister. We also have Arista Records, and we have a fictional character called ARISTARCHUS. Now, in the Game of Thrones, which features the Ice Wall, I believe it, I haven't watched it, we have the Stark family. Ben Elton had a book called Stark, right? Or Star Arc. Star Arc, Noah's Ark, Star Arc. So it's the next process, next step. So excellent, yeah. And well, I've been saying it before. Aristarchus, rightly so, is one of the most encoded words in existence. So yeah, that piece of information there. Remember, all these people, the Jim Marses, the David Wilcox, the John Lears, the Jim Fetzers, they're all put in place, every one of them. So we have to look beyond their guys, and we can see what real clues they might be presenting to us. And yeah, that's a pointer. That's a pointer to it. So now we have to try and understand what the moon is in terms of a flat Earth. These people will deny flat Earth, or just will not talk about it. Again, their silence is deafening, so we can understand that. So yeah, that's the point where I'm coming from. So it's just very interesting that yeah, all of this is, our attention has been brought to it at this stage. But again, don't forget there's a greater context to it all. And for me, Aristarchus is the source of all the luminaries. The Milky Way on the moon was just a stepping stone to realizing that the pattern itself is to be found within Aristarchus, the Milky Way pattern. So this is all sort of happened in conjunction, well, over time, but happened realizations over time that we are looking at this kaleidoscopic effect of the same central core cause, crater, if you will. So thanks for that, Mick. And I can post that in the chat, the link. You want anyone interested? I would say I'll probably get around to going through that at some time, but I'm not too bothered about a lot of the fluff as well. A lot of fluff is in there. We have to have a context for everything, and yeah, in terms of the context I'm focused on, and all of this is starting to make a lot of sense. So there's a link in chat. I don't see any questions, so I'll just continue on with what I was going to do. I'll play a little song then, and then make a cup of coffee and continue on for about another 3/4 of an hour. So even though I can get it all read, definitely won't get it all read, get enough to ponder on. And I'm trying to think about how I will actually read it. I think without interruption to begin with, anyway, and then maybe save comment for the end of a chapter. I will give an initial impression beforehand, or I will point out what I deem to be significant from where I'm at now. So yeah, excellent. Let me just play a bit of music. So just want to make a cup of coffee. Did I see Martin Leedkey on tonight? Martin Leedkey. Yeah. Okay, I'm just looking for Creative Commons. Okay, here's another one. I don't think I've heard this. Let's hear it. Sorry, the kettle's on, but just notice Mark Sargent's symbol here. Look at the S overlapping the center. Remember I was talking about the S being representing the divided state. And then we have the M in the center. Remember I was talking about the M as opposed to the W and the tendency towards the upper qualities, etc. Mark Sargent, well, Mr. Flat Earth, right? So he is the chief clue giver. So look beyond the surface layer of clues and see what you might find. Anyway. Hollywood is man. Just a bunch of baboons, monkeys, yeah, that's all the life. It's all the life. They fell from grace when they lied about space. It's all the life. It's all the life. They fell from grace when they lied about space. It's all the life. It's all the life. They fell from grace when they lied about space. It's all the life. It's all the life. They fell from grace when they lied about space. The brand. Oh, I enjoyed that. I thought that was good now. I enjoyed the tune. Nice and catchy, isn't it? Who's that by? Take it easy, Brand. Lies by Stephen Derby, STFN Derby. Excellent. Enjoyed that. Take it easy, Brand. It's all on 10 after finding out about 9/11 conspiracy. It was just a natural evolution, but Paveway presented to me as well in the form of likes of Clues Forum or Let's Roll forums, all sort of huts along the path that you can come in and sort of fill up on real education, if you will, understanding that, well, later on the understanding comes that you're dealing with people who are put in place, and there are limitations, and we learn more about what people at a certain point will not talk about over what they will talk about. And it's easy to talk about the same things over and over again. What are you not talking about is the bigger question. Okay, let me sing a song. I had in mind. Let me just go back on camera, and then I get started. And yeah, very good. I enjoyed that. So Stephen Derby again, promoted by Mark Sargent. Oh, and look at the Washington Mountain. Could you say that was a crater from a certain angle if you're looking down on it? Yeah, Mark's Argent is your clue there. I went through that the other evening, of pearls of the moon. Come on. I've been talking exactly about those things. So on the moon, right, there we find Aristarchus, I-Starchus, I-star in the center. And again, where do you get pearls? From an I-star, right, or an oyster. So there you go. It seems to be all before you. Okay, let me... Excellent song here coming up, and I played it before, but listen to the lyrics now. Another Bob Dylan type enterprise. All people put in place. Same with all the artists. I maintain Lewis Carroll didn't exist, you know. These sort of things. I maintain Newton didn't exist. Again, the character is just crafted. Shakespeare didn't exist. The character is crafted to present a narrative. Shakespeare sold us a lot of things, including and especially the Globe, because that's where it's promoted more than any other work. The works of Shakespeare never mentioned the Bible, because I say, well, first of all, they're written by the same hand, but they were also in and around the same time. I never mentioned the pyramids as well, and there's many different quotes used within the works of Shakespeare that coincide to parable sayings, etc., points of intersection with the Bible. Again, clues for us. It's the same hand that's written all of this stuff, and yeah, even though there is, as I was talking about earlier, there is a literal aspect to every story, it's also a metaphorical and symbolic in its greater essence. So I stoned. Do I look stoned? I'll call in the dog in a second. Okay. I'll show you what I did to the poor dog. No, he didn't succeed yet. Okay. Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to strawberry fields when nothing is real. There's nothing to get hung about. Strawberry fields forever. Living is easy with eyes closed. Misunderstanding all you see. It's getting hard to be someone, but it all works out. And nothing matters much to me. Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to strawberry fields when nothing is real. There's nothing to get hung about. Strawberry fields forever. No one I think is in my tree. I mean, it must be high or low. That is, you can't, tune in, but it's all right. That is, I think it's not too bad. Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to strawberry fields when nothing is real. There's nothing to get hung about. Strawberry fields forever. Always know, sometimes think it's me. I know when it's a dream. I think or no, I mean or yes, but it's all wrong. That is, I think I disagree. Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to strawberry fields when nothing is real. There's nothing to get hung about. Strawberry fields forever. Strawberry fields forever. Strawberry fields forever. Strawberry fields forever, yeah. There's nothing to get hung about. Any suggestions? I've never I've heard strawberry fields associated with heroin fields and the dreamlike state. I think it's greater than that. I think in one big way, life is a dream, or life can be classed as a dream. Life is not if L. We already talked about L being the tendency towards the lower aspects. This is the L itself represents that. The crossbar is the spine, right? So you can equate it to your own story here. And yeah, the L then is along the foot, along the ground. The serpent crawls on the belly. But the serpent represents materialism, the material, not so much materialism, just everything associated with the material. So, very interesting song. The most interesting line I came to. Yes, if anyone had any ideas about strawberries and why particularly strawberry fields in a different context, yeah, cool. Please let me know. No one I think is in my tree. I mean, it must be high or low. What does that mean? No one I think is in my tree. I mean, it must be high or low. Your tree is high or low. What do you mean by a high or a low tree? The difference between, say, an apple tree and an oak tree? Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe we're talking about in more real terms. No forests and flat earth sort of terms. What do you think? It's certainly an integral part of my picture. I know it's true. That's all I can say. I know it's true, but with what I don't know is true is whether it is within the context of assimilation or a greater sort of story, greater gameplay scenery set. I think it almost has to be, again, if I do accept that we are greater beings in a divided state for whatever purposes. So who knows? Who knows? But I think the Beatles know. I have to laugh at John Lennon, and someone was mentioning about some character. I can't remember now. Well, who was it? Who mentioned that? I didn't look it up actually because I never heard it. Was it Flat Earth music or Flat Accord music? That some character died the same day as John Lennon was killed, and had sort of a parallel fame of his own or infamy of his own. I think it was the story that he planned. Lexicon of the Devil, I think, was one of the works he mentioned. I must look that up. But was it that he had set his own agenda for 5 years, and at the end of that time he was going to commit suicide, which he succeeded in doing, but attention wasn't brought, or nearly not enough attention was brought to it, because John Lennon was said to have died the same day. Well, excuse me. No, John Lennon didn't die that day. The fake John Lennon didn't even die that day, or the replacement. The fake John Lennon was fake killed that day. And yeah, make of that what you will. But I'm absolutely satisfied that that is the case. It's just more theater. So what has been told within the narrative presented, remember, every story will have been constructed. And well, we can see the sort of, the stakes here. This is only our lives, you know, so it's going to be the greatest story, I think, but only when read properly. It brings to mind the imagine, the imagine and a memorial. It's a plaque placed in the center of Central Park for with John Lennon in mind. Very revealing as well in terms of the spiraling pattern. And this is central to everything. And especially when we look at the moon, we can see everything in a spiral fashion with the right eyes. Another clue Kubrick left for us was the moon base in the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, which connects big time with 9/11 2001. The moon base was Clavius, Crater Clavius. It's when you look at Crater Clavius, you can see the spiral pattern really, really presenting itself. And it won't take much connection to understand that you are looking at reflected artifacts, like looking at something in between two parallel mirrors, but the mirrors aren't parallel, you know. So again, spiral pattern, but it goes a lot deeper than that, at least in terms of what I think is an overall explanation. Just to recognize that this patterning is the case is a big step in itself. But yeah, another clue for us. And then everything is all confused in the last verse. You know, always know, sometimes think it's me. But you know, I know when it's a dream. I think, or no, I mean, or yes, but it's all wrong. That is, I think I disagree. So this ties into, for me anyway, what I was saying about the sword and the stone. Taking the sword from the stone is taking the S word, which is from the stone, or the S tone. The S tone is the TH. Right, the thought, THOTH. So the S tone is the TH sounded out. It's like the serpent tone, almost, isn't it? A serpent sound, but it has that S tone about it. But there's a distinct difference between S and so yeah, when we understand what the theta represents, both in terms of the letters TH and what they represent, and also in terms of the idea or the picture behind the theta, the 0 and the 1, the material and the immaterial. The 8 is created from the 0. It's the twisted 0, right? So we have entered a divided state. This is the overwhelming story. And yeah, when we can think of it in these terms, it can sort of make a lot more sense. But yeah, very confused. I know when it's a dream, that's what we were left with at the end of Alistair Looking Glass. Is life a dream? This is the conundrum, actually, and I still haven't gotten around to answering it myself. It was a very interesting one. Is the king in our dreams, the red king in our dreams, or are we in the red king's dreams now? To find out and figure out what the red king represents, first of all, and for that you'll have to go through Alice in Wonderland, Alistair Looking Glass particularly, and maybe come to your own conclusions. But it is a great significance, and we have the red and black colors of the Mason. So what does red actually mean? Mars is the red planet, right? So we have a sort of different context we need to place all these things in. But yeah, we are left asking, is it a dream? And indeed, yeah, this is where is, sword from the stone, and deciding what is. Bill Clinton says it depends on what the meaning of the word is. Forget about the sexual nonsense. This is all more, I could tell you why that was put in place as well. I could definitely give you one of the reasons why the Lewinsky thing was put in place, but not to linger on that. More fakery, more nonsense. But yeah, more significant then is when we can re-examine what's said and what's presented to us in a new light. And yeah, when he said it depends on the meaning of what the word is, it certainly does. When you decide something, remember for years, you'd attach the sound is to a spinning, careering ball. So in one sense, you gave it an absolute reality, especially when you think about it, if we are co-creators, in a loose sense. This is a weapon, if you will, or a power that you need to carefully wield or yield. And yeah. We don't know what's what. So be careful what you decide what is, and I pointed this out regarding the S and the S coming together. When you do that, you have actually my screen share is still on. Oh, it isn't now. Let me share my screen again. Share my screen again. When you bring the S and the S together, or the 2 and the 2, it's the same thing. The S represents the 2 divided state. What do you get? Just another one of these links I have up. You should be able to see this here. Oh, hang on. Oh, hang on. Here we go. Just as I was bringing it up, and I was bringing this up in terms of the number 22, and why it was the number of Jesus. Actually, I was thinking that 22 was the number of Jesus. I see number 22, but it's not the number of Jesus, but it is a connection to Jesus. But here we have the 2 and the 2 up here. Look, formed a love heart. I mentioned this before. I also mentioned that the fleur de lis encodes, to some degree anyway, the barrier, the nature of the barrier, or the bi-barrier. So yeah, that was just interesting there that we mentioned the 2, and we're sort of divided down the middle. It ties into why Jesus is androgynous and has a mirrored face. He's always pointing at his heart center. This is Aristarchus in the back. Look at how this is just a random link. And look above the clouds, there you have the sun. This is what it represents to Christ. Is Aristarchus Christ's aura? We have one source for everything. The sun is just a direct reflection of Polaris. And so Polaris is where Aristarchus again emanates from the North Center, hits the barrier, right, and does its small circles on a daily basis. So its manifestation in terms of a direct reflection is the sun itself, right? So the sun then just follows its pathway, which is based on the movement of Aristarchus within the center. I'm going to say it's within a whirlpool. It's on a floating island, if you will. That's where I'm at in terms of drawing clues from what I've heard via mythology and a few other real stories as well. For instance, a retired ship's navigator told me that he thought the idea of flat Earth was ridiculous, but he did tell me that, and he was on the sea for 35 years. And he did tell me that all tides in open ocean, surge from the north. So you have like some sort of a breathing mechanism or a giant whirlpool. That that's what's responsible for all the tides earthwide. We have this constant sort of breathing or pumping of the heart, exactly like the heart. And this is all sort of encoded, but that's going a bit further. If I put in a corner regarding what I think Aristarchus is about within the North Center, But yeah, its direct reflection, if you will, is Polaris. What's in the name? Well, Polaris Starcus, right? And then the sun is a direct reflection of Polaris, and the moon then is a direct reflection of the sun. Now, is it just a continual dimming of the same thing that's producing everything? Getting there. It's like one of those, those sophisticated laser anti-burglar systems. You see in banks, or especially via the movies, you have lasers bouncing off everywhere. All you need is mirrors, and then you have things crisscrossing in a very intricate manner. All that sort of stuff. Maybe. But one thing I'm certain of is that Aristarchus is the source of all. We have one source. Instead of an infinite number of luminaries, we have one cause. And look, that's what it's pointing here. Jesus in the center. I'm not going to go into this now because I'll never get a chance to. I definitely need to read this next time, because I can sort of interpret the book of Genesis and, well, the New Testament in a new way now. And, well, again, there's two ways to read. There's the external story and there's the internal story, and both are interconnected via Aristarchus. As I say, Aristarchus is, well, for me, I've gotten into the habit of thinking it anyway. Aristarchus is all we can know on earth and all we need to know. It's everything without, and it goes all the way to the very heart of our matter / matters itself. And look, if you're looking for a traditional scientific sort of discussion on all of this, you're not going to get it. It's a different game in play. We've seen how far science has taken us. Now we can see how intuition holds up, and also we can acknowledge and recognize the nature of this game somewhat, and we can look out for the clues. So yeah, that's just a by the way, but I'll definitely hang on to this link and go through it the next time. So the book I talked about, and I'll read for about a half an hour, and then I'll let you go next time. And again, I'm doing this for myself, most especially. I've been meaning to read it for a good while, and I know better place than to read it on here anyway. I did read it for my beautiful Steve when he was a young boy. Probably watched the version on television as well, that sort of thing, and took something different from it. Now I enter this understanding, first of all, as I said, can buy the information on some conspiracy forum, maybe above top secret or godlike production where anyone can join or anyone can read, it's secret information. But that Pinocchio, yeah, is up there in terms of prevalence, in terms of a valued story of secret organizations like this, the Masons, or etc. So I don't give a shit about that. Just that there is some emphasis on the story itself will be very telling. And, well, when I enter it, I will have one thing in mind ultimately, which would be Aristarchus, right, and all things associated with that. So you mightn't. So if you choose to listen to me reading it, I would encourage an open mind about everything. And I would also encourage, and I'm encouraging myself, to always bear in mind the law of reversal, right? Pinocchio, for instance, is made of tree, right? Made of wood, right? Where does wood come from? A tree. Where does a tree come from? No forest and flat earth. So Pinocchio is made of wood. He wants to become a real boy. Well, if he was in his full mind, if you will, if he was in his proper thought, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he don't want to be human, because human is a divided state, whereas we are trees. Are we trees? Type into YouTube, we are trees. People think so. I've often pointed out the number of body parts was associated with the number of tree, which is associated with the number of tree parts. It's beyond any coincidence. This is all purposefully chosen and purposefully associated. And yeah, in what greater context? Well, that remains to be seen. But yeah, the story as you've garnered is Pinocchio. So I'm going to read it chapter by chapter, and that's what I'm going to have in mind. Reversal, and ultimately, Aristarchus. So whatever about you, and if there's any questions, let me just go into this because I'll be reading for a while. Oh, my view, how you do my view? No, I haven't, but I had the link, the Morgul's link up there to take a look at it. So that's definitely on the on the agenda. And yeah, thanks for that. Make this, if you leave any comments, make a comment in my view, or I'll definitely do it myself anyway. Do a Will Smith, Barack Obama comparison. And as I said about the Morgul before, he's definitely looked at and it's funny enough on the same issue, where he believes Barack Obama and Osama bin Laden are the same. But I've seen him use some of my work regarding George W. Bush being Charles Manson. And I used a particular photograph of Barack Obama to compare with Osama bin Laden, and he also used that. So I'm not saying that he's plagiarizing or anything, but I definitely had work done 2012 sort of thing, even before that, on Barack Obama and Osama bin Laden, which was handed to us on a plate, and Charles Manson and George W. Bush, right? So I don't know if anyone else had stuff out about around that time, but I certainly did my own investigation to two of those and found it to be in the positive. So I'd like to definitely see Morgul doing using his talents, doing a similar analysis. I haven't seen it yet, as I said, on someone like Barack Obama and Will Smith. Also, anyone out there, Theresa May and Mark Thatcher, Sandy123, my own Richard Dreyfuss, Bernie Madoff. That's another certainty. A few others as well. I think definitely one other anyway. So yeah. Anyway. Cheers. Antonio Subarat, Star IBS. Is that the real Antonio? I don't even mind if it is or not. How you doing? I won't even say too much about that. Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm just saying good to see you. I've made my point of view clear, Antonio, if that is you. But I will just say that I recognize people put in place there to act their part. I cast no judgment on them, but I can accept that within their own stories themselves, there is a narrative being presented, and we can sort of read the clues and move on. That's where I'm at. If I'm wrong, so be it. I'll just continue on. But yeah, I hope you're well. I hope all are well. So let me continue then. All right. Yeah, don't worry about that, Yuan. Okay, I haven't looked at. Okay, no, I don't look at the chat too often. I mean, I should bring it up, but I wasn't going to bring it up tonight. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll answer that hopefully now. So sorry about the delay there. Yeah. Okay. Oh, Harry. Okay. Sorry. If the moon is a reflection of the sun, what would cause a solar eclipse? Okay. We have reflections sort of backing up on themselves. So if we look at the moon, we can see and I maintain this is the black sun, right? So when we look at the moon, we see Aristarchus, but the neighboring crater is Herodotus. It's sort of perfect, not a perfect black circle, crater, mysterious crater right next to Aristarchus. When you understand that this is a reflected artifact, remember what I was saying earlier on about all of the craters being the same thing, you know, and the moon being the best blueprint in existence of any one singular object or item, i.e. crater. Yeah, this is what I meant. So Herodotus itself is a reflected artifact of Aristarchus, but that has definitely something to do with an interference, and it all depends on a sort of a certain alignment. And these are sort of mathematically known, you know what I mean? These are mathematically calculable. So that's my theory on it, and I've been saying for the longest time that I think, yeah, when we see eclipses, we just have the source coming back on itself. So it's like you sort of shining, in one sense, a pen laser in the darkened room into your mirror, and moving the pen until the source sort of comes back in itself. Except we are dealing with Herodotus, which I say is the black sun, or what has been described as the black sun, and for those reasons. So something along those lines are my thoughts anyway. Prove any of this stuff, man. How are you going to do that? Where does the moon go through? 3 days every month. Never had an answer for that. Well, I can answer it. I answer it in terms of reflections, and reflection coming on itself, and the source of the reflection, i.e. the source of the moon, the sun, reflecting against a certain point on this contoured barrier, reflective barrier. So as it's higher, it will show no reflection. in terms of the moon. As it's lower, then it will show a partial reflection until it moves down on a sine wave, on a continuous sine wave. As it reaches its lowest trough, then we see a reflection from directly across the barrier in terms of the full moon. So this is what we're dealing. This explains why the sun and the moon are both the same size, because we're dealing with one and the same thing. And I mentioned the clues to that as well. The Gemini missions paved the way for the Apollo missions. Gemini is about twins. The Apollo missions, Apollo's about the sun. No more opposites can you get than the sun and the moon. So why would the Apollo, why would they relate the Apollo in such obvious and overt fakery as well? Why would they relate the Apollo and the moon missions? Well, they're telling us that moon and the sun are one and the same, or at least have some intimate or intricate connection. So yeah, that's where I'm at that. So listen, on that note, let me, I hope that answered it well enough, but I didn't want to get too much detail about that anyway. Tantus, oh yeah, just because I saw Antonio Superas mentioning Polaris. The opposite of Polaris is Sigma Octantis Polaris. Ha! And that's a shadow of the whole. So we have light and shade. You know all about this, Antonio, in terms of artistry. We have light and shade. We have solid, and we have immaterial. You know, you can't pick up your shadow. You know, but without the solidity, there is no existence of the immaterial. So yeah, this is what's happening with the stars, and this is why the southern stars are a mirror, are a ghost of the northern stars. But ultimately, everything comes back to one central source itself, which is Aristarchus. When we look at Aristarchus and the moon, we're looking at its reflected form, but even Aristarchus itself seems to be another spiraling manifestation of the central peak of Aristarchus, which, as I pointed out, is very like this. It's what the Liberty Flame represents. It's what the Nike swoosh represents, and so many other things. So it's getting pretty deep there. Also very reminiscent of a sperm, a semen, so and a vagina. You know, we don't just have two eyes, you see, or three eyes in terms of the pineal. We have more. We have many more. Well, at least two anyway. We have the anus, so you could consider as an eye. Our anus is an anagram of a sun. We also have the penis, right? The tip of the penis, the eye of the penis, or the vagina. It's the same thing. One is the inversion of the other. This is where when everything is brought together, the two sexes, talking about the S, when you see S alone as an is, as opposed to is, or ISIS, or ISS, there we have the bonding of the two. Well, we have two sexes, so we have S's on each side, two E's, and then the X in the middle. So think about the X in relation to the H. Everything points towards this zero-dimensional center, this core of all things. So this is what the heart is, and this is what gets to the heart of our matter, you know, whatever the fuck we are. So, okay, anyway, listen, sorry for the my view, apologies to all. I definitely have to go into chat more, but it is a big sort of, we're not very good at doing a few things at the same time. I can't read, chat, and sort of talk at the same time, which mightn't be a bad thing. Anyway, let me get on, read this, and we'll see how we go after a few chapters. I cut it short tonight. I just came on for a while and get you started on this. I'm looking forward to going through it myself, and they're the basic terms. I'm going to be thinking in terms of Pinocchio being made of wood, the carpenter, the father who crafted Pinocchio, and what he might represent. But yeah, giant trees are certainly a massive aspect to my thinking. Aristarchus, as I said, and this law of reversal as well. And what indeed should we hope for? What transformation or transmogrification are we in for? Have we been through? And again, it's all about determining what is. So before we take any steps, we have to understand the situation very perfectly. And by externalizing all of these things, then, well, yeah, we are not helping ourselves. So this is our story. And, well, let me get started. Let me just go into Wikipedia to start with here. And I brought something up briefly. If it comes up. The name itself is very interesting. Pinocchio. Pin. Alice received a thimble from the dodo. 3 as a prize. And why a thimble? Well, a thimble protects from a pin, doesn't it? You know, you're piercing something, you're piercing skin. So I've talked about the earth and its confines. We're within a bubble in one sense. And no, I'm just going to leave that come up now. we're in a bubble in one sense, and you could describe the collapse of those confines as the bursting of a bubble. So Alice getting the thimble would be protection against the pin. So pin okio, O in the center, kio, ch is in church. CH is also 24, which is 888, which is the number of Jesus. So church, beginning of CHUR. So church is just CHUR, right? So we find out what the significance of CH is in terms of numbers and equate it then to the 8, which is to be found at the heart of Aristarchus. It represents infinity, or the twisted zero, or the divided state we are now within. So, oh yeah, that's just the only thing I was pointing out of interest here. If this works, come on. Oh yeah, here we go. Oh, this is where Wikipedia comes into its own as well as clue givers. Definitely found that loads of time. Oh man, this is getting stuck here. I hope that's coming through okay now. Yeah, that seems to be coming through grand. I'll just reload the page. Okay. Seems to be a problem there with that. Oh, that's all I was looking at here. Look, I have it here actually. Somebody knows be okay. So I was looking at the origins. What was the original story that came out? Oh, come on. And I was just, 1881 came out. So here we are, 2018. So here we 18 mirrored gives you 81. Crow 777 also told us that one version of events, the beginning of the age of Aquarius was 1881. So that's interesting, isn't it? And that's the only interest there that it sort of hit me. The name of the author, Carlo Collodi, I won't comment too much on. I've never heard of him before. But there we have, of course, the CC, which is the third letter, 33. Jesus, 33. The 3 representing the 8, twain, and 2 down the center are also representing the E, right? The one side to us been torn from the other. And yeah, so that was just of interest. I'll go through that myself later on. Okay, I have 2 of them up. That's why one was causing trouble. Come on. Oh, there we go. I think we should be okay now. Okay, just let me get rid of this altogether. I think okay. I think I might have too much stuff open here. Let me just close this here. Okay, bear with me now. If I'm still coming through, I don't want to click at the other link because let's wait for it to close down. think we're back, hopefully back to normal now. Yeah, that seems to be coming through here. Just a bit of a slow start on my computer. I don't think this this choice of link is going to be as fruitful as the last one in terms of Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through Looking Glass. But I'm going to make my way through this. I'm going to see how long it takes to make our way through. We have 36 chapters and, well, 36, 6 times 6. And once again, I've been meaning to reread it with all this, with flat earth and beyond in mind. But I do know it did come into my mind from a memory that it was held in high esteem by secret organizations. So let's see what we make of it. And I won't comment while I'm reading for the first time around anyway. Just check that that's coming through. That's pretty instant, isn't it? Isn't it amazing? People all around the world, all 18, all around the world, have instantaneous access to everything I'm saying and doing here at the minute. So let me just bring it up a small bit, just if you want to read along. La 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 la. La 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 la. Pinocchio by C. Collodi. How it happened that Mastro Cherry Carpenter found a piece of wood that wept and laughed like a child centuries ago. Okay, maybe I'll make allowances for missing punctuation or whatever. Centuries ago there lived a king, my little readers will say immediately. No, children, you are mistaken. Once upon a time there was a piece of wood. It was not an expensive piece of wood. Far from it, just a common block of firewood, one of those thick, solid logs that are put on the fire in winter to make cold rooms cozy and warm. I do not know how this really happened, yet the fact remains that one fine day this piece of wood found itself in the shop of an old carpenter. His real name was Mastro Antonio, but everyone called him Mastro Cherry, for the tip of his nose was so round and red and shiny that it looked like a ripe cherry. As soon as he saw that piece of wood, Mastro Cherry was filled with joy. Rubbing his hands together happily, he mumbled after himself, "This has come in the nick of time. I shall use it to make the leg of a table." He grasped the hatchet quickly to peel off the bark and shape the wood. But as he was about to give it the first blow, he stood still with arm uplifted, for he heard a wee voice say in a beseeching tone, "Please be careful. Do not hit me so hard." What a look of surprise shone on Master Cherry's face. His funny face became still funnier. Now, I just pause a second. I was expecting to see Giuseppe, so I'm not sure. I'm just going to have to... We don't want to... No, this seems to be by the original author, so let's read it the way it's coming across here anyway. And maybe Giuseppe is a Disney edition for all we know. But let's see anyway. Okay, now it can be a little bit more fluid. He turned frightened eyes about the room to find out where that wee little voice had come from, and he saw no one. He looked under the bench, no one. He peeped inside a closet, no one. He searched among the shavings, no one. He opened the door to look up and down the street, and still no one. "Oh, I see," he then said, laughing and scratching his wig. "It can easily be seen that I only thought I heard the tiny voice say the words, 'Well, well, to work once more.'" He struck a most solemn blow upon the piece of wood. Oh, you hurt," cried the same faraway little voice. Mastro Cherry grew dumb. His eyes popped out of his head, his mouth opened wide, and his tongue hung down on his chin. As soon as he regained the use of his senses, he said, trembling and stuttering from fright, "Where did that voice come from? When there is no one around? Might it be that this piece of wood has learned to weep and cry like a child? I can hardly believe it. Here it is, a piece of common firewood, good only to burn in the stove, the same as any other, yet might someone be hidden in it? If so, the worse for him. I'll fix him." With these words, he grabbed the log with both hands and started to knock it about unmercifully. He threw it to the floor, against the walls of the room, and even up to the ceiling. Next page. He listened for the tiny voice to moan and cry. He waited 2 minutes, nothing. 5 minutes, nothing. 10 minutes, nothing. Oh, I see, he said, trying bravely to laugh and ruffling up his wig with his hands. It can easily be seen. I only imagined I heard the tiny voice. Well, well, to work once more. The poor fellow was scared half to death, so he tried to sing a gay song in order to gain courage. He set aside the hatchet and picked up the plane to make the wood smooth and even. But as he drew it to and fro, he heard the same tiny voice. This time it giggled as it spoke. Stop it! Oh, stop it! Ha ha ha! You tickle my stomach. This time, poor Maestro Cherry fell as if shot. When he opened his eyes, he found himself sitting on the floor. His face had changed. Fright had turned even the tip of his nose from red to deepest purple. Okay, that's chapter 1. That was pretty quick. We threw this in no time. Can I just check in chat here if there's anyone listening? You reckon that's the original version? I would definitely want to read the original version. You reckon that's the original version? Has anyone heard Maestro Cherry associated with the original version of Pinocchio before? It's always been Giuseppe for me. So that's why I typed in the original version. I want the original story to sort of to read from. Yeah, I'm just gonna. Oh, you're just going to chat to see if anyone knows this for certain is the original version, but I can't see why it wouldn't be. But anyway, gullible gimp sapien Dodo is a hoax, Pete. Total fabrication, right? Exactly, man. But it's a hoax. It's a hoax with the most. It's a hoax with the most within the artifice, within the art, right? Is encoded a wonderful story, or depending how you view it, I guess. And that's a wonderful story, but a story nonetheless, right? So it's there for the reading. Okay, so let me just continue on reading anyway. Maybe do another 2 or 3 chapters and continue take it from there next time. Make sure for certain that it is the original version, because that's the only one to read from. And I'll probably have to do that afterwards. So I'll just read another 2 or 3 chapters and call it a night then. So let me continue. Oh no, here we go. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Okay, chapter 2. So here we have Geppetto. So chapter 2, Master Cherry gives the piece of wood to his friend Geppetto, who takes it to make himself a marionette that will dance, fence, and turn somersaults. In that very instant, a loud knock sounded on the door. Come in, said the carpenter, not having an atom of strength left with which to stand up. At the words, the door opened, and a dapper little old man came in. His name was Geppetto, but to the boys of the neighborhood, he was Polendina, on account of the wig he always wore, which was just the color of yellow corn. Geppetto had a very bad temper. Woe to the one who called him Polendina. He became as wild as a beast, and no one could soothe him. Good day, Master. I won't do any voices now, right? I'll just read it through. Good day, Master Antonio, said Geppetto. What are you doing on the floor? I'm teaching the ants their ABCs. Good luck to you. What brought you here, friend Geppetto? My legs. Okay. Okay, and it may flatter you to know, Mastro Antonio, that I have come to you to beg for a favor. Here I am at your service, answered the carpenter, raising himself onto his knees. This morning a fine idea came to me. Let's hear it. I thought of making myself a beautiful wooden marionette. So how the timing was perfect, right? It must be wonderful. One that will be able to dance, fence, and turn somersaults. What did I intend to go around the world wearing my crust of bread and cup of wine? What do you think of it? Bravo, Polendina, cried the same tiny voice which came from no one knew where. On hearing himself called Polendina, Master Geppetto turned the color of a red pepper and, facing the carpenter, said to him angrily, Why do you insult me? Who is insulting you? You called me Polendina. I did not. I suppose you think I did. Yet I know it was you. No, yes, no, yes. And growing angrier each moment, they went from words to blows and finally began to scratch and bite and slap each other. When the fight was over, Mastro Antonio had Geppetto's yellow wig in his hands, and Geppetto found the carpenter's curly wig in his mouth. "Give me back my wig," shouted Mastro Antonio in a surly voice. "You return mine and we'll be friends." Okay, I'm just going to pause there because that's very interesting, Irving. So remember the wasp in the wig? Where the wasp, the discarded chapter of Alice in the Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass. The discarded chapter was the wasp in the wig, and we deemed it to be the most important clue-bearing chapter. It's all about a wasp and his yellow wig. So here we have that connection immediately to the yellow wig. And I wonder, yes, is this a deliberate tie-in? We'll bear that in mind as we move on. The two little old men, each with his own wig back in his own head, shook hands and swore to be good friends for the rest of their lives. "Well then, Master Geppetto," said the carpenter, to show he bore him no ill will, "what is it you want?" "I want a piece of wood to make a marionette. Will you give it to me?" So next page. So 2 pages per chapter, be through it in no time. Mastro Antonio, very glad indeed, went immediately to his bench to get the piece of wood which had frightened him so much. But as he was about to give it to his friend, with a violent jerk, it slipped out of his hands and hit against poor Geppetto's thin legs. "Ah, is this the gentle way, Master Antonio, in which you make your gifts? You have made me almost lame. I swear to you I did not do it. It was I, of course. It's the fault of this piece of wood. You're right, but remember, you were the one to throw it at my legs. I did not throw it. Liar. Geppetto, do not insult me, or I shall call you Polendina. Idiot, Polendina, donkey, Polendina, ugly monkey, Polendina." On hearing himself called Polendina for the 3rd time, 3 is the magic number, Geppetto lost his head with rage and threw himself upon the carpenter. Then and there they gave each other a sound thrashing. After this fight, Master Antonio had 2 more scratches on his nose, and Geppetto had 2 missing buttons from his coat. Thus, having settled their account, they shook hands and swore to be good friends for the rest of their lives. Let bygones be bygones. Then Geppetto took the fine piece of wood, thanked Master Antonio, and limped away toward home. So excellent, excellent. Do you see how little connections are being hinted at anyway, more than hinted at? So had you not known about the discarded chapter from Alice Through the Looking Glass, you wouldn't be able to clearly make that connection about the yellow wigs and, well, the removal of the wigs, which is, well, again, very pertinent. I say that's the most important chapter of all of both books, Alice in Wonderland, Alice Through the Looking Glass. It's upon the discarded stone that, what is it, my mansion will be built. So, excellent. Yeah, I'm getting into this now. Maybe I read the children's version of the fairy tale to my son, but I wouldn't know. I probably read the original. It's probably there in its essence anyway. It has to be because it's a clue for us, right? So let's move on to the next chapter and maybe just finish in chapter 4 in honor of the dodo. Do is 2 and dodo is 2. So it's 22, number of Jesus. The dodo represents a divided state internally, and that's why I was looking up the Jesus and the 22 significance. Jesus is Pisces, the fish, the 2 fish. So just these are the connections. Chapter 3. And hopefully my reading will get a bit more, again, fluid when I can tackle more than just 4 chapters. So as soon as he gets home, Geppetto fashions the marionette and calls it Pinocchio. Well, yeah, Pinocchio in the Italian, right? So Pinocchio. The first pranks of the marionette. Hang on, have I all this page in? The first pranks of the marionette little. All right, sorry. The first pranks of the marionette, little as Geppetto's house was, it was neat and comfortable. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. It was a small room on the ground floor with a tiny window under the stairway. Furniture could not have been much simpler. A very old chair, a rickety old bed, and a tumble-down table. A fireplace full of burning logs was painted on the wall opposite the door. Over the fire, there was painted a pot full of something which kept boiling happily away and sending up clouds of what looked like real steam. Just thinking to myself here, if my reading isn't coming across too well, I always said to my boy Steve that when you're reading Addison, you read it 3 times. So the first time your a lot of attention is focused on just actually reading the words, and you're not thinking too much about the meaning. The second time, then you have a familiar flow, and you can focus more on what's actually been said. And the third time, then you can actually listen to the story as you're reading it and absorb what it's actually about, and more so what it might be about. Okay, so anyway, as soon as he reached home, Geppetto took his tools and began to cut and shape the wood into a marionette. What should I call him? He said to us. Okay, sorry. So the first little line here is a little description of the chapter. Okay, so sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, we can just continue on then. You get the gist. What shall I call him? He said to himself. I think I'll call him Pinocchio. This name will make his fortune. I knew a whole family of Pinocchio once. Pinocchio the father, Pinocchio the mother, Pinocchio the children, and they were all lucky. The richest of them begged for his living. That's interesting, isn't it? And we're saying Alice is all of us. Alice is the father, the mother, the male, the female, the boy, the girl, all lumped into one. So we are Pinocchio. So that's our clue here now. And there's that connection made to Alice in Wonderland via the yellow wig and the wasp. So that's very interesting. So this is where I'll be moving on. I won't say much more about that because these are my own impressions. So every word is chosen very, very carefully. And as I said to you, special attention is pointed at Pinocchio. We're told anyway, via its significance to organizations like the Masons, etc. Forget about that. Just pay attention to this. Yeah, read it in a flat earth sense, or flat earth frame of mind, and then see where it takes you. So anyway, after choosing the name for his marionette, Geppetto set seriously to work to make the hair, the forehead, the eyes. Fancy his surprise when he noticed that the eyes moved and stared fixedly at him. Geppetto, seeing this, felt insulted and said in a grieved tone, "Ugly wooden eyes, why do they stare so?" There was no answer. So, see, I don't want to comment here. So much is occurring already. So there is life to the wood before being crafted by Geppetto. So automatically I'm thinking out the capital G as well. This Geppetto is the god of the Genesis 2. Remember, life was already there beforehand in Genesis 1, and the fact that we have this wood and carpenter being found by a master cherry. Very interesting, right? So a very interesting start now. Excellent. And I won't read it at my own time as well. I'll just read it aloud in my channel and comment as I go. Won't be commenting too much. Maybe we might read it again next time around from 1 to 4, but I'll just finish up in 4 here tonight. But very happy so far now, I have to say, within the confines of my unhappiness. Okay. There was no answer. After the eyes, Geppetto made the nose, which began to stretch as soon as finished. It stretched and stretched and stretched till it became so long it seemed endless. Poor Geppetto kept cutting and cutting it, but the more he cut, the longer grew the impertinent nose. In despair, he let it alone. Next, he made the mouth. No sooner was it finished than he began to laugh and poke fun at him. "Stop laughing," said Geppetto angrily, but he might as well have spoken to the wall. "Stop laughing, I say," he roared in a voice of thunder. The mouth stopped laughing, but it stuck out a long tongue. Not wishing to start an argument, Geppetto made believe he saw nothing and went on with his work. After the mouth, he made the chin, then the neck, then the shoulders, the stomach, the arms, and the hands. Very interesting. So we were fashioned like from clay, right? So what is clay? We think about what clay might be and what is the deeper significance to that whole story in Genesis 2. Remember, I've spoken about this before. Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 are 2 different stories, right? They're 2 different stories featuring 2 different gods. Major objection is raised by all the Bible literalists to this even very suggestion. You're demonic, But when we can think about it in a different sense, this is exactly what's going on. There's 2 different stories being told again to tie in with the division, the dodo, right? The bifurcation. Anyway, right. As he was about to put the last touches on the fingertips, Geppetto felt his wig being pulled off. He glanced up, and what did he see? His yellow wig was in the marionette's hand. "Pinocchio, give me my wig." When I'd be reading this, and I'd put on all the voices for Steve. Can't remember how long it was, but it wouldn't have been so long. when other people are reading all of these fairy stories to their children at appropriate age, I guess, you know, 4, 3, 4, 5. I was reading the likes of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I can see why that's very important now. But yeah. Instead of giving it back, Pinocchio put it, he's very impertinent, isn't he, Pinocchio? Pinocchio put it on his own head, which was half swallowed up in it. At that unexpected trick, Geppetto became very sad and downcast, more so than had ever been before. Pinocchio, you wicked boy, he cried out. You are not yet finished, and you start out by being impudent to your poor old father. Very bad, my son, very bad. And he wiped away a tear. Hang on, is that chapter 2 finished? Let me just see. Oh, that's chapter 3 already. Okay, so we move on to the last page of chapter 3. The legs and feet still had to be made. As soon as they were done, Geppetto felt a sharp kick on the tip of his nose. I deserve it, he said to himself. I should have thought of this before I made him. Now it's too late. He took hold of the marionette under the arms and put him on the floor to teach him to walk. Pinocchio's legs were so stiff that he could not move them, and Geppetto held his hands and showed him how to put out one foot after the other. When his legs were limbered up, limbered, a little pun there, I'm sure, Pinocchio started walking by himself and ran all around the room. He came to the open door, and with one leap, he was out into the street. Away he flew. Poor Geppetto ran after him, but he was unable to catch him, for Pinocchio ran in leaps and bounds, his 2 wooden feet, as I have a wooden leg. People ask me all the time, have you a wooden leg? I said, well, we moved on from the days of the all wood fake limbs. They're plastic now, so yeah. But yes, is fundamentally the answer. So I'm Pinocchio in a real sense, but we all are. So that's an interesting thought to bear in mind as we move forward. He ran in leaps and bounds, his 2 wooden feet as they beat on the stones of the street, making as much noise as 20 peasants in wooden shoes. Catch him, catch him, catch him, catch him, Geppetto kept shouting. But the people in the street, seeing a wooden marionette running like the wind, stood still to stare and to laugh until they cried. At last, by sheer luck, a carabinier, I don't know what that is, a carabinier, maybe a sailor of some sort, happened along, who, hearing all that noise, thought that it might be a runaway colt, and stood bravely in the middle of the street with legs wide apart, firmly resolved to stop it and prevent any trouble. Pinocchio saw the carabinier from afar and tried his best to escape between the legs of the big fellow, but without success. The carabinier grabbed him by the nose, it was an extremely long one, and seemed made on purpose for that very thing, and returned him to Mastro Geppetto. The little old man wanted to pull Pinocchio's ear. Think how he felt when, upon searching for them, he discovered that he had forgotten to make them. All he could do was to seize Pinocchio by the back of the neck and take him home. As he was doing so, he shook him 2 or 3 times and said to him angrily, "We're going home now. When we get home, then we'll settle this matter." So Pinocchio, on hearing this, threw himself on the ground and refused to take another step. One person after another gathered around the two. Some said one thing, some said another. "Poor marionette," called out a man. "I'm not surprised he doesn't want to go home. Geppetto, no doubt, will beat him unmercifully. He is so mean and cruel." "Geppetto looks like a good man," added another. "But with boys, he's a real tyrant. If we leave that poor marionette in his hands, he may tear him to pieces." So yeah, people getting the wrong end of the stick. How that occurs so much to me, or so much in my relations with people. People getting the wrong end of the stick. I always have to tell people, look, if I say something sort of out of place and it doesn't fit in anywhere, I don't get pissed off at it. I'm just joking, and I can explain it. But generally, people get pissed off at it and think take me serious when I'm not serious at all. Anyway. Okay, they said so much that, finally, the carabinier ended matters by setting Pinocchio at liberty and dragging Geppetto to prison. The poor old fellow didn't know how to defend himself, but wept and wailed like a child and said between his sobs, "Ungrateful boy, to think I tried so hard to make a well-behaved marionette. I deserve it, however. I should have given the matter more thought." I should have carved them out a little penis, a little tiny penis, the way it should grow. Now, does the nose represent the penis? Remember, everything ultimately goes back to the penis. And that's not in any sort of dirty way. This is just getting to the heart of matters. So we have to bear these things in mind as well. Sort of opposite ends of the ladder here, isn't it? The penis and the nose, and one grows, you know. So again, everything is reversed. So we can bear all these things in mind. What happened after this is almost an unbelievable story, but you may read it, dear children. And it's interesting they call us children as well, because we all are children, because we're there to learn, and we're there to have a sort of an innocence with us when we enter this new realm. In other words, we don't know what's what, and we reserve our use of the word is, right, when describing anything. In the chapters that follow. Next chapter, chapter 4. Right, I think actually I'll leave it at chapter 3, because then we're getting into the real story, and then we're meat and bones of the what do you call it, the matter. I think we'll be through this in no time, but excellent. I'm looking forward to it now. Looking forward to that. Far from a bedtime story, Joanne Caras. That's not what I'm reading this for at all. And already after making some very, very valuable to me anyway connections between, again, for me it's the same story that's been told again and again, and it's the same basic story. Again, it's a story of us, right? That's the internal. The external is secondary, where we are, where we find ourselves. Then it's us having this experience, finding ourselves somewhere. Who are we? So this is all connected with all of these children's stories. Remember Mother Goose, who lays the golden egg? Mother Goose was an anonymous author of children's stories. So all from the same hand. And all big clues. And the reason I'm reading this, well, a children's story is important to the Masons, that have this up on a high pedestal, because it's an escape. It's an escape from the pressures of business life, alongside the hookers and the cocaine. You have children's stories. Well, we know where that could go, right? All right, I'm going to finish up there, and yeah, definitely happy I started that now, and I will continue that on the next time. So that'll be in the next few days. Once again, I've gone sort of beyond most of the flat Earth stuff. I know there's a deeper picture going on here. And I have said everything I've had to say about it. We continue to talk about it at any stage, but yeah, all of the things that I've learned, I apply it to a greater picture, and you are trying to paint that greater picture. And it is my picture. I'm just here for the most part talking to myself. Oh, here, before I go, here, Brand. Let me introduce you to Brand. Come on, Brand. Come on, Brand. Here, boy. Here, bud. Let me stop the sharing here. Hey, Brand. Sure, you want to see what the little challenge let me just get it on camera. Did I stop sharing there? Hang on. Just going to see now if I stop sharing. Okay, I think I stopped sharing, didn't I? It's just that I want to see. Anyway, I know what I can see. That's why I'm looking for it. Here's Brand. Hi, Brand. Say hello. Sure, let me go. What are you doing over there? Go over there. You show some decorum. Everyone wants to see you. Go over there. I'll show everyone. Can't get it. It's just out of reach. What you see? What's that funny fuzzball at the end of his tail? Come up there. Come up there. Don't you go in there? Never mind. Look. We'll just get around here now. Little fuzzball, just slightly out of reach. Slightly out of reach, but I'll tell you. Harry, where is it? Can you see that there? Can't really make it out now. There you go. There you go. Perfect. Good boy, Brand. You deposed well there. So it's a bit difficult to getting that off. But Jesus, when he gets it off, he tears into it. He tears into it. I'm gonna actually take it off now. All right, Brand. that's it. Oh, look at that. It's like getting a shoe off, isn't it? A bit of a string, bit of a fuzzball here. The furry thing hanging off his arse. Can't get it. What's the psychological man? He still loves me. Look, he wants it now. He wants it. He wants it. He wants it. The thing is, when he bites into it, he can't get any purchase on it. And all he ends up doing is smacking himself on the lip because this is an elastic. Look. So he bites that and it smacks him. He gets angry and tears into it. Here, Brand. Come on, Brand. Come on. Get it, Brand. That fecker, that's the fucking thing that was doing it to you. Come on, son. There you go. Oh. Do that. No, he has that. Look. You'll hear loads of angry stuff now in a second. That'll be coming from him. Yeah, so anyway, listen, excellent. I'm very happy I started that. Don't know how long more I'll be doing Hangouts. I don't think for too much longer. But I'm happy I started that, so I'm going to get that finished and definitely going to take something major from it. I know it. The fact that the trees, the fact that Pinocchio existed. Pinocchio is all of us, right? So we're going through a process. And as I say again, the fact that that's one of the top significant stories that were told, secret organizations like the Masons, etc., value. So these are all just clue givers. Don't need to take any interest in them, really. We can just look at what's presented and make what we will of it. So yeah, until the next time, thanks for tuning in. And Brandy is just about to start tearing into it now. He started jumping around shortly and great fun. I'll tie it back onto his tail then tomorrow. And I put I have a video here, I'm not sure. I put a bread wrapper, an empty bread wrapper on his head. And he just walks around. So he has this on his tail, he has that in his head. He's walking into walls and everything. And he was able to tear the top of it off the front of it. So you could see out, but it was like in a tunnel. He didn't like that too much. Do you hear it? What's that, Brand? What's that, bud? Get it, bud. The corner. Yes. Look, he hits it so bad. Look, he hits it so bad. He has the string. Look, he has the string in his mouth, and he's slapping his head off, but head side to side. But it doesn't hurt him or anything. So yeah, I think I said to him before, and if you don't want me to do this and mess around, just let me know by walking over there. He always doesn't walk over there, so I just mess around with him. So we're sort of under that clear understanding from the start. So if you think I'm being cruel here, he's going to get a big tub of mincemeat from my brother in a while. Best fed dog around. Looks beautiful as well. Just gave him a wash yesterday. So yeah, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Doing great fun. The teeth going chop chop. Okay, let me finish this and say thanks for tuning in, and yeah, I'll see you shortly. Oh, oh, I've spent it in the garden. I know the heart where I've done, alas, it was to none but me. And all I've done for want of wit to memory now I can't recall. Total to me the parting dusk would not enjoy me with you. I'm trying to sing here. If I had money enough to spend and leisure time to sit a while, there is a friend made in town that solely has my heart beguiled. Her rosy cheeks, her ruby lips, I own she has my heart in so true to me, the parting dusk would night enjoy me. Oh, come there, right high there, sorry for my day. I know sometimes there I hide, they will wish me one more day. Since it falls onto my heart that I should rise and you should gently rise and softly fall and joy gently rise and softly fall. Good night and joy. Get my hands in your singing. Okay, friends. I'll see you next time. All the best. Oh, Val. I love you, my Steve.